So we are live, and we're going to share on Facebook for a few moments. Hi, folks. We are here on YouTube and on Facebook.
Hi, everybody.
And we'll be with you in a couple of minutes after we share a little bit to Facebook. Because as you know, the Facebook link is not available until we go live. And there is Laura. Hello, Laura. Thanks for sharing of the YouTube live link in a new tweet and sharing here to many groups. That's the kind of help we really need.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
There it is.
Okay.
Are you done?
I am done sharing, done looking up some of my reference material.
I still got to do a little more.
Okay. One of these days, I'm going to have to start logging on to Facebook again.
Okay, I'm going to start too. Hey, Shane, how are you? I see you on Facebook. Okay, folks, we're here, fully present now, and we're going to get to it. Thanks so much for you coming. So many of you here tonight. That's nice to see.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Kay. Hello, Carmen. And Dolores on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, Dolores. And there's Laura on Facebook. And Kay's going to try her best to see things here on YouTube. Lana says, howdy. Lana says, is that Kay I see? Amber says, good evening, my lovelies. Good evening yourself, Amber. And we hope you're getting ready to come on again soon because we're going to ask you.
Yeah.
Holly Horn says, hello, Dr. Joe. Hi, Holly. Thanks for becoming a regular on the channel.
Hey, Shane.
Sandy says, helloing. Hi, Sandy. Great to see you again. And Holly Horn says, hi, Lana. Lana says, ugh, Jen Perelman has Scott Santons on to talk UBI versus MMT puke. I didn't have the impression she was talking UBI versus MMT, but that Scott Santens was suddenly promising some kind of synthesis of UBI and MMT. I was pulled in and I watched a few moments of it, and damned if in the first few moments Scott wasn't just talking MMT. In the first few moments, at least, I didn't hear any UBI. It looked like Scott had learned some MMT. I was amazed. Anyway, I'm curious to go back and finish the thing. And Sandy says sharing, and Carmen says hi, Hallie, and lots of highs. And there's Shane. Hey, Shane. So glad you're here to protect us all. And Shane says, hey, Lisa. Holly says, hi, Carmen. And Holly Soren says, so great meeting everyone at the Netflix demo. Yes, you were there, Holly. That must have been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I was sorry I couldn't have been there. I think would have been the most fun would have been going out to dinner afterwards. Steve Day says, one of these days, FB is an easy and pretty tool if properly used. Never did like FB. And anyway, there's a lot of other greeting going on. And Lana says, Scott Santens is a damn idiot. Okay.
You gotta love Lana, man. She's becoming fast
do.
one of my favorites. I love her.
I do.
Love you, Lana.
I do. Lana is certainly big favorite. The support she's given me has been fantastic.
Yeah, she's pretty special.
Yeah. Kay says, yes, it's me, Lana. Okay, so tonight we wanted to talk about this political moment and maybe lift each other's spirits somewhat, and maybe your spirits as well, because, boy, it's just been raining shit out there on us all.
You know, though, I was upset about it last night.
And you were upset about it this afternoon, too.
I was, but I think a couple of things. It used to be that when the stories came out in the headlines, you know, it was like, oh, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to counter this? And now I think that the movement itself is much more informed because we have so much independent media. And we have our own slew of independent media, journalists who people rely on. And I think we're way more networked than we used to be. And I'm talking about, going back to 2016 till today, right? It's nice that people are aware because we've been able to we've been able to push and wake people up and help people get networked and get more informed. As soon as they started blaming the progressives for the loss last night in Virginia and the very close race, and I can't remember what state the other state where they thought it was going to be a blowout and the race was so close, and I can't remember what state it is. But anyhow, I don't even know who won, but it must have been a Democrat, or we would have been hearing about that.
Are you talking about New Jersey?
I don't know if it was New Jersey or not. It might have been, because I would have gone to New Jersey to try and look to see how Madeline was doing. And maybe that was the article that I was reading. How did that one end up? Was that a razor thin margin?
No, not what I saw earlier tonight. It seemed like it was a pretty big margin for Murphy in the end.
And then it wasn't New Jersey. I don't know. It does. I honestly can't remember, and I can't believe I can't remember. But anyway, with like a decent percentage of the precincts reporting, it was up in the 90. This race was being compared to the Virginia race because it was supposed to be, the Democrat was supposed to win, and it was supposed to be a blowout, and it wasn't a blowout, right? It wasn't. So everybody started, the pundits started blaming, and Manchin started blaming the progressives, and everybody fought back immediately. But even more than that, everybody saw what they were doing, right? Which years back, not everybody would see that projection, right? We actually anticipated it. And it was nice to see everybody come out and, kind of laugh. How are you blaming progressives for this? They weren't responsible. We didn't do this, right? And I think I don't think that, well, anybody who's going to consume mainstream media will probably try and push that narrative, but that narrative isn't going to live for very long. It's just not. Because anyone who knows anything about progressives, who got Biden in the White House, by the way, right, along with the other Democrats who, had to hold their nose and go vote for him. If it wasn't for us, he wouldn't be in there, and we all know it, and they all know it. So, in that sense, I am hoping that they're starting to feel the heat on the Hill, that the DNC is starting to realize this isn't going to work. What we're doing is not going to work. Because I was not surprised at all by what happened last night. So, there's that.
I was not surprised at all either about what happened last night. It just had the feel as we were approaching the election that it was going to be a very tough time for Terry McAuliffe. It just seemed like he was riding for a fall. He ran the whole campaign against Trump. He offered nothing at all to people other than, look at me, I'm not Trump. And
he wasn't running against Trump. It doesn't even make any sense.
No, he wasn't running against Trump, and he wasn't offering anything to people. And God, at least what Trumpkin was offering to people was taking away grocery taxes.
Yeah.
It's a little thing, but grocery taxes are annoying to people. Paying that sales tax on food and things like that, that's annoying to people. So he was going to give him something, however little it was, and however much he planned to cut services in return for that. He wasn't talking about that. He was talking about giving people something. And Terry McAuliffe wasn't talking about giving people anything. So,
did New Jersey? Who won in New Jersey? Did the Republican or the Democrat win in New Jersey?
No, it was a Democrat. It was Frank Murphy.
Okay.
Who won, at least based on what I saw on YouTube earlier. I didn't look actually very closely because by then I wasn't interested. I was interested in getting to the meeting we had at 5:00. So that was more interesting to me than who won in New Jersey at that point.
I still haven't found the specific statistics on Madeline.
No, I haven't found the specific statistics either. Have you got the Green Party results there in front of you?
I do. I do.
Can you share the screen from where you are?
I have not emailed them to myself. Hold on. Hold on. Joe, I put them in our DM.
Oh, you did? Okay, wait, hang on a second.
So why don't you pull them up? Because that way you know how to do it. I've never done it on StreamYard. I don't want to be stupid. I mean, I see the share, but then I got to get it out. I got to get it out of my phone and into my email and do all that.
In your talk tonight. What you put in was actually Ramona's link. Okay, to the party.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been updated. I looked at that earlier, and Madeline's results were not there at that time, but maybe she'll be there now, so we'll be able to take a look at it. Let's see. Are the Greens running? Okay, Madeline evidently got 7,452 votes, 0.31%. Not very strong, I'm afraid. In other words, not even 1% of the vote. So that was not a good result. I know she worked hard, but it's hard to get people to vote for the Green Party in New Jersey.
That's a shame.
It's a shame. But Dominic Faison, General Assembly District 11, Asbury Park, in Monmouth, New Jersey, was the fifth of five candidates for two seats. She got 955 votes, which for her seat in the General Assembly was 0.76%. So she did not do well either. Barry Bendar, ran for county commissioner of the Green Party, Ocean County, New Jersey. There were 7 candidates for 2 seats. Barry Bendar got 1,336 votes, which was 0.35%.
Okay, we're not supposed to focus on all those. Let's go back to the top and get all the winners, because there were a lot of them.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of winners, but I do want to point out that Audrey Clement, running for county board in Arlington County, Virginia. Arlington County is right here, okay, in Northern Virginia, was the second out of 4 candidates for that seat. And she got 15,341 votes. That was 18.34%. And that is pretty damn good for Arlington County, I think, here, okay, in Northern Virginia. But let's go up to the top line, yes, and get some of the really good results. At least 16 Greens are elected so far, November 2021 elections. Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to be sharing this and I did not share it. So let me share it now so everybody can see it for themselves, especially since we've reached the good part at this point. So there we go. It's being shared now.
Beautiful.
So, as results come in for all candidates, they will be posted below. Click on the links below each candidate's name for the official governmental elections results links for their race were available, and to each candidate's entry in the database for full information about each candidate. So there were 16 Greens that got elected. One was Anna Trevorrow, City Council, District 1, Portland, Cumberland County. Oh, this is Portland, Maine, by the way.
Maine.
First of 2 candidates for 1 seat, she got 1,514 votes and 56.3% of the total. So she was elected. Scott Harriman of Lewiston, Maine, ran unopposed. First, 1 candidate for 1 seat got 528 votes, 100% of the votes, and he was elected. And Dagmar Knoll, Town Council, in Willimantic, Windham County, Connecticut. She was the incumbent. She was the third of 5 candidates for 3 seats. She got 415 votes. That was 18.71%. So she was elected to one of the 3 seats. And Joseph Wetmore was elected to the town board in Lansing, New York, which is in Tompkins County, which is where I went to college. I mean, not Lansing, but I went to Cornell, which was in Tompkins County also. He was first out of 4 for 2 seats, got 1,329 votes, 28.18%, and he was elected. And then there was Megan Parks. She was elected to the school committee in Lewiston Public Schools, Androscoggin County in Maine. She was an incumbent, and she was the first of two candidates for one seat, got 4,656 votes, 64.7% of the vote, and she was elected, as I said earlier. And Matthew Reitenhauer, School Board, Brandywine Heights, Topton, Berks County, Pennsylvania.
This is a big deal.
The third of four candidates for three seats got 885 votes, 15.38%, and was elected. Why is it a big deal, Lisa?
Well, because it's a big deal when we get Greens elected in counties that it's not Philly proper, right? It's coming out from Philly. And we've got Greens that are winning in Pittsburgh area, and we've got Greens winning in other areas that aren't necessarily, urban areas, high density population. Greens tend to have a better chance. And when it starts moving out from those big urban concentrated areas, I get excited about it, because what it means is it's spreading out into more of the non-urban. We're not talking rural yet, but we are into the suburbs or the other concentrations that maybe people would, I guess they are suburbs. They're not the cities, right? That's exciting to me.
Yeah, that's exciting to me too, that a Green Party candidate would get elected in one of the suburbs. That is exciting. Next is Samantha Stinson from Hennepin County in Minnesota. That is Minneapolis area. She was the second of four candidates running for two seats. It was a ranked choice voting election. She got 29,495 votes. That's a lot of votes.
It is 30.8%.
30.8%, right. That's a good showing. Charles Critch, at-large Board of Directors in the Willimantic Taxing District, Windham County in Connecticut. And she was the second of two candidates for two seats. She got 443 votes. That was a close election, 47.03%. She was elected. So obviously she wasn't too far from being the first of two candidates. And Cassandra Martineau.
Oh, well, there were two Greens that won, because this is the other one.
Yeah, first of two candidates in the Willimantic Taxing District in Windham County.
So Windham County elected two Greens.
Yeah, 499 votes, 52.97%, and she was elected too. Yeah, that's amazing.
That is amazing. That's terrific.
Two Greens in one district. That's really good news. And Leif Smith, constable in Reading, Connecticut, which is in Fairfax County, was an incumbent. He was the sixth of six candidates for seven seats. He got 555 votes, 7.72%, and he was elected. And Hugh Birdsall, the Zoning Board of Appeals in Clinton, Connecticut, which is in Middlesex County. I've always loved that name.
I know. There's a Middlesex, PA, too.
Yeah. There seems to be a Middlesex everywhere. I think there's one in New Jersey also. Fourth of four candidates for five seats, 877 votes, 17.45%. And he was elected, of course. Okay, Emery Ng, NG. Zoning Board of Appeals, um, he was elected as an alternate, I guess. That's in Windham County, Connecticut.
Did
The
you
second,
already say Hugh Birdshaw?
yes,
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
already announced Hugh Birdsall. Right.
Sorry.
He was the one in Middlesex.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's Emery Ang, Zoning Board of Appeals. He was an alternate in Windham, Connecticut, which is in Windham County, not surprisingly. He was the second of two candidates for two seats, got 694 votes, 36.15%. Jay Sweeney was elected as auditor in the Falls Township, Wyoming County, Pennsylvania. He was an incumbent and he was the first of one candidate for one seat, got 276 votes, 96.19%. He was elected. Abigail Hunter, judge of elections in Ward 7, Precinct 8 in Pittsburgh,
Downtown.
Pennsylvania.
Downtown.
Allegheny County,
Yep.
first of one candidate for one seat. She was elected. Then J. Ting Walker, judge of elections, Ward 7, District 6, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, again, Allegheny County. First of one candidate for one seat, and he was elected.
Woot woot.
And the last one is Andrew Moses Yanez Oliva, judge of elections, Ward 15, District 6, in Reading, Pennsylvania. Okay, or is it Reading, Pennsylvania?
We say Reading.
They say Reading. Berks
County.
County, Pennsylvania. Berks County, Pennsylvania. Yep. So
I'm excited.
that was the good news.
I'm very excited about that.
16 greens.
Woot woot. Makes me smile.
Okay, pretty cool.
What else happened that was good? We know that India Walton did not win.
We know she did not win. She got swamped with write-in votes. They must have spent a lot of money on that because obviously people came out for that who did not come out for the primary election.
Yeah.
They decided to come out specifically to beat her. We lived in Buffalo for a while. Okay, Bonnie is from Buffalo.
I lived there too for a couple years.
And we met, and married there. And we know there's a lot of racism in Buffalo. At least there was.
Yeah, it's a blue collar, hard town.
It was 50 years ago that we moved out of Buffalo. So, but attitudes like that, they change very slowly. They're passed, from generation to generation, unfortunately. And of course, there was a lot of residential segregation, in Buffalo, just, the usual neighborhood urban segregation, which tends to maintain racist attitudes that people have. Because people don't have real contacts with other people.
Interaction doesn't happen. Segregation due to disenfranchisement and all of that. It's on purpose.
So to switch back to the comments for a while, Laura says, we are getting very networked. Thank you again and again to you, Joe, and to Shane, KRTD Media. Hey, Shane, you're a hero today. You're a hero today.
Shane's been everywhere. He's working his butt off.
He is.
Thank you, Shane.
Yes, he is. And also remember, KRTD Media is apparently going to organize itself as a nonprofit. And Kay says Murphy barely won New Jersey, Holly. Sandy says, thank you, Kay, for that. Sandy Deck says, yay, go Greens.
Right?
Carmen says, fantastic for the Greens, keep growing. And Lonadell says, glad we have some good news. So let us now get to the bad news and do commentary on that. Of course, perhaps the Virginia result is extremely bad news. We won't know for sure. It depends on how Trumpkin Governor Youngkin gets. But we have to remember that where Youngkin comes from is the Carlisle group. So Youngkin was originally a Bushy.
Okay.
He's a Bushy who's adjusted to Trump. But the question is he really a Trumpist? Or is he still just a Bushy? Now, there's not, really a hell of a lot of, there's a hell of a lot of difference in certain respects. But at heart, the Bushies are just crony capitalists rather than out and out fascists. So there's a difference between them and the real Trumpists. And it may turn out to be that Youngkin may not be that much different from the governors that Virginia has had for a very long time.
Oh, sorry.
They've all been rather right wing. They've all been basically crony capitalist, okay, in character. It doesn't seem to matter whether it's a Republican, okay, or a Democrat.
Right.
With respect to the economic side of things. Now, socially, of course, the Democrats have been supporting identity politics for some time, but fairly strongly, and are more protective of women and black people than the Republicans are. There's certainly a big difference there, and not simply than the Republicans are, but especially than the Trump Republicans are. So there is a little bit of mystery about where Youngkin is going to stand, okay, as governor. A lot will probably depend on whether Trump actually runs in 2024 or whether something happens to him and he does not run in 2024.
Joe, before we get too far into the bad news, can I just read Laura's comment about the Greens? Because I think it's really pertinent.
Please do.
It says we all need for the Green. Well, I'm sorry. All we need for the Greens is for people to see these wins. And I think she's right. This will increase people's confidence to vote Green and to run Green. And of course, it will have positive implications for other third parties. But then she says in parentheses, going to try not to refer to them as third parties, but for force of habit. I think she's got a point there.
Yes, I think she has a point there too.
Yeah. And I think it was really cool that it was suggested by Lana. She tweeted at you, but we were busy today, and I know that you were off, like I was off Twitter, and I happened to come across it, and she said, Lisa, can you guys cover this? I'm like, heck yeah, we can cover that. What a great idea. But I would have never known if it wasn't for oh my goodness, Ramona. It was Ramona's link.
Yes,
that aggregated all this information. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. It's all right here. This makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes, and by the way, okay, I have booked an engagement here for Ramona on Tuesday.
Yay!
So she will be
Yay!
coming here then.
It's about time I met her. I've talked to her, but I've never actually like seen her face.
She was, by the way, at Shane's protest as well.
Oh, okay.
And she spoke there just yesterday.
I'm going to have to go back and watch the whole thing. I didn't catch all of it, but that's beautiful. Okay, good.
And she was really important also in helping Shane to get it done.
Thank you, Ramona.
Right. So that may be a good point. It's certainly worth trying to publicize it as much as we can and call attention to it, okay, as much as we can. I suspect the real breakthrough is going to come when a Green Party candidate gets to be the mayor of a big city, or when a Green Party candidate cracks the Congress. As might have happened a couple of years ago if some of the Green candidates that ran in Southern California had done somewhat better. They got up to 25% of the vote or 30% of the vote, but they couldn't really crack the establishment in that area yet. But one of these years, those Green Party people in Southern California, one of those Green Party people in California is going to win. And that's going to be a really, really big deal.
I've got 4 years, and then I won't need to live in the school district. I can move down into the city, and I can vote down there for all the candidates that run. I'm out of the area where all the big lefties are. There's a lot of lefties in Allegheny County. I don't live near them.
I see. The reason why you don't live near them is because of the school district.
Yeah, I'm up in the burbs in the better school. Yeah.
You're right, and you need to send your son to the school districts.
Yep.
To that
But
school.
I have plans.
Huh? How's your son doing, by the way?
He's doing fairly well. He can put weight on his foot. He's got a isolation boot. And he did today. He got around pretty well. Shoot, I have to call. I forgot to call today. I've got to get him into therapy. And in 3 weeks he'll go back. We'll have to see how it goes. What he did break his ankle, but he also like messed up some of the tendons or ligaments. So we got a ways to go. We're gonna have to figure it out. If they start coming back on their own, he'll be out of the woods. If he don't, we're gonna go back to square one. So we'll see.
Okay, so let's talk about the various theories and explanations which are floating around to try to explain what happened in Virginia. So what are you seeing?
I saw a lot of things. Well, I don't want to steal what you told me. What I saw was it.
Steele, go ahead, Steele.
Okay, so you were telling me that someone said that this had to do with Biden pulling out of Afghanistan. And at first I was like, huh? And then I remembered that there's a lot of military in Virginia. So, I'm just looking at the demographic. I don't know. But who said that? Was that McCullough who said that one?
I don't know whether McCullough said that one. I think some people before the election were speculating that he was likely to find it tough in certain areas, okay, of Northern Virginia, okay, and also down in the Norfolk area.
Right, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of military.
Military there. There are lots of forts up here.
Right.
Okay, and but there are Marines up here. There are Army folks up here, and there also a lot of CIA around, And so
that's real. But at first it didn't hit me. And then it was like, oh, that's right. There's a lot of military.
yeah, but the question is the issue really that they were objecting to Biden's pulling out, or were they objecting to the mess that occurred?
I'm certain that there is more than one vector hitting this right now.
Yeah, I think there's more than one vector hitting it too. Okay. So that's one theory.
The other theory was that if the progressives would not have tied the reconciliation bill to the infrastructure bill, right? The reconciliation bill is the one for the people. The infrastructure bill is the infrastructure, which is the corporate contracts. The criticism was if the progressives would not have tied those two bills together and passed that infrastructure bill, let that infrastructure bill pass, this wouldn't have happened. Which is
right, but you know what? That's a lot of funny reasoning, because
sure it is.
If the bipartisan infrastructure bill had been voted on without the support of the progressives,
it wouldn't have passed.
In early July, it would not have passed.
Mm-hmm.
It only passed because a deal was made with the progressives, and then
they broke it.
Once it passed the Senate, once it got through the Senate, they broke the deal.
Right.
Because they already had Bernie's vote. Then they tried to decouple everything at that point so they would not have to vote for the people's infrastructure bill.
Right.
That's basically what happened. So then the progressives insisted on them holding to the deal for a very long time. And that did happen to delay things. But really, most of the delay, if you're looking between March 15th and now, most of that time was eaten up by silly Biden trying to do bipartisan things with the Republicans, okay, and then by his giving free rein to Manchin and Sinema to see what they could do to construct a bipartisan deal. And that didn't really happen. When did they get finished constructing their bipartisan deal? It must have been late in August or early September or something like that. It wasn't so long ago that they actually concluded the damn thing. So there would still have been March, April, May, June, July, most of August before they were ready to put that to a vote, and before they got it through the Senate. So the question is, who wasted most of the time?
Well, it wasn't the progressives that wasted the time.
It wasn't the progressives who wasted the time. And if a deal had not been made with the progressives in the first place, that bill wouldn't have passed in August either. And
listen, this all could have been done if they would have kept their end of the bargain. It would have all been done.
Yes, it could have all been done.
I mean, what was the first thing that they 86, the parliamentarian 86 did, right?
It was the first thing 86 by the parliamentarian was the $15 an hour.
Not in that. They didn't the parliamentarian 86 something out of the recon bill, out of the reconciliation bill. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she reconned that she 86'd
the immigration
PRO Act provisions. Yeah, the immigration provisions, but I think she also objected to some of the PRO Act provisions.
Okay, so that's not the progressives. That's the parliamentarian. Who she work for? Chucky Schumer. Right?
She works for Chucky Schumer, and who hasn't fired her? Chucky Schumer.
Right? And that's when this all went sideways. Okay? They blew this bill up on purpose. They blew it up on purpose. Pick they, right? Pick who they is.
Yes, I think they is Manchin, okay, and Sinema. so intent on pleasing their donors, okay, by blowing up the progressive bill, that they delayed and delayed, okay, and delayed, and got into a situation where they thought they could crack the progressives, and they were right about that because the progressives caved. But they're the ones who are responsible for the lack of delivery. The point is, nothing good has been delivered for the people by the Democrats in all these months. That's what hurt Terry McAuliffe.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that goes not only to the conflict between the progressives and the rightists in the Congress, it also goes to Joe Biden not using his executive power to do certain things. Well, what things, for example, would we mention? Well, minting the $100 trillion coin, not licensing out the vaccines to everybody in the world. So COVID might have had some chance of being contained, so the mutations might have stopped. Also, under Section 1881A of the Social Security Act, getting the current version of Medicare for everybody. Biden could have seen to it that that was free. Furthermore, he could have fired Liz Fowler and appointed a PNHP stalwart in her place. That would have been very popular. Enormously popular would have been the elimination of all student debt.
yeah, I mean, they could have done that right out of the gate.
If he had done that, that alone might have saved Virginia for the Democrats.
I'll tell you what, it might have saved the House and the Senate in 2022. It still could. Student debt alone.
It still could. And then also, there is licensing out overpriced prescription drugs to generic competitors, like licensing out insulin.
Yeah, I mean, he could do that. He could do that, right?
Okay, to generic competitors. That's 6 things that could have been done to make Biden enormously popular and to give people the impression that he was delivering for the American people. And he did none of them.
Okay, so how inept could the political analysis of the Democratic Party be? Let's just go for real here. Blow by blow. $2,000 checks did not get delivered, right? First thing. That piece of legislation was being worked on long before.
Yes.
Right.
That was the first thing. But also, after promising $2,000 checks, not actually delivering $2,000 checks because they thought somehow that was a little too much money to spend.
Right.
I mean, this is the MMT age. They know there are economists out of there who are telling them and telling the people, telling large proportions of the population now, every week, all the time, because the MMT education campaign is really ramping up now, and it's telling people the size of the debt doesn't matter. The size of the debt to GDP ratio doesn't matter. Why wouldn't Biden give $2,000 checks to people? The only possible rationale was that he didn't want to increase the debt even more by giving people $2,000 rather than $1,400 checks. So what did he do? He broke a promise that he ran on. And what about the $15 an hour?
Well, wait, back up, because I want to keep on this timeline here, because that was March, right? Let's go to April. What happened in April? Ready? Jayapal comes out with 1976, right?
HR 1976, and immediately it's pigeonholed by them.
It's gone. Okay. And what happened then? a lot happened then, because I was one out here screaming, "Where's the damn bill?" You couldn't even
Right.
find
But
it.
one of the things that happened then, okay, is that Jayapal immediately caves and doesn't even fight for her own bill.
Exactly. Exactly.
What the
So,
hell was she doing? What the hell was Bernie doing? She and
okay.
Bernie decided they weren't going to fight for their own bill.
Well, okay, but Bernie was not in the house. This is her introduction into the House. Bernie was dealing with first, Senate Budget Committee. There was a lot of shit going on there. Bernie said he was going to introduce his bill after the reconciliation bills and the infrastructure bills went through. Biden's the one that stepped in. But hold on, we're in April. April. Where's the damn bill, right? What happens then? The Red Berets head out to Washington and they do a protest in Kilmer's district in Tacoma, right? Jayapal, remember now, chair of the CPC, she is from Washington, right?
Yep.
So we're out there because that's what everybody was asking that everybody should do, right? Everybody, all the people that are Medicare for all. Let's go. All the Democrats, right, that signed on in the House. Go and ask your congressperson, right? So we did that protest. We started filming with Kenny Ballantyne. We started filming the movie, right? Then whole Washington decides to do their ballot initiative, right? That whole thing was going on. March for Medicare for All. Sharif is coming around with Ricky and he's like, hey, Laura, let's go. Don't be late. Lock the date. Save the date or whatever. Don't be late. Save the date. Lock the date. July 24th, we're going to do Medicare for All March, right? DC. Then Seattle picked up the ball with whole Washington, right? Now, that's all April. June, July, we've got the March. Right around that time, infrastructure bills start to fall. In between there, did anything happen?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Go ahead. Your turn.
Yes. What was happening was they were dicking around with bipartisan bullcrap.
Yeah, and somewhere in
I'm
there,
sorry. That
it's
wasn't a
true.
very eloquent statement.
It's no, you're hanging around me, right? I swear like a sailor. That's right. And the thumbs down was on the $15 minimum wage at the very beginning when they did the rescue plan, right?
Yes. They
Right.
tanked the $15 an
Right.
hour minimum wage because the parliamentarian they should have fired
I didn't do that.
told them that's not consistent with the reconciliation bill because that one was done on reconciliation also.
Right.
Instead of firing the parliamentarian on the spot and getting a new one who would rule in exactly the way they wanted to do.
Or just won't get asked.
President Biden says, I respect the parliamentarian.
Mm-hmm.
I swear at the time, what I thought was he was saying, I respect the parliamentarian because he was getting ready to ignore her.
Right. Right.
But no,
That's
no
not what
such
happened.
luck. No such luck.
Okay.
He really meant he was going to use her as an excuse.
Okay. So in the middle of all of that, Joe, they did talk about the voting rights bill. They had several attempts. If you go back out, because I did this research, I went back because I was looking because Schumer got on the floor of the Senate yesterday and said that he was, going to the floor of the Senate to talk about the Voting Rights Act. So I went out to C-SPAN to see if I could find the coverage, and lo and behold, they've been there like, I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Yeah,
This been going on.
Yeah, they've been going to the floor of the Senate, but when they hold those votes, after they hold those votes, they're not doing anything to burn Manchin and Sinema and the others for not getting a carve out of the filibuster. They should have been trying to get a carve out of the filibuster right from the very beginning, and they should have been running votes every single week and then running ads against them
So when
And
Joe's
they failed
talking
to get rid
about
of the
they
filibuster.
should be, when Joe says they should be running votes, they're talking about trying to get enough votes to get the debate, right? To hold a debate on the floor.
No, that's not what I was talking about. What I was talking about is they should have been invoking the nuclear option right in April when they, in order to put the voting rights bill on the floor. They should have
So,
attempted to bring
okay,
it to the floor when the Republicans filibustered it. They should have invoked the nuclear option at that time. Okay? They only need a majority of 50 plus one to get rid of the filibuster for good.
right,
Every time they invoked, okay, the nuclear option, which they should have done every week from the first week in April on, once a week, they should have invoked, okay, the nuclear option. And when Manchin and Sinema voted against it, which they would have done, they should have run ads in their states that they're voting to keep the filibuster so the Republicans can take away your voting rights. Those were the ads they should have been running. These people are in league with the Republicans to take away your voting rights. One solid month of doing it, I think Manchin and Sinema would have buckled. But I want to go back to the $15 an hour.
good,
That was a promise that Biden ran on.
right. Oh yeah,
Biden is wonderful at breaking his promises. He broke
and
two promises with that first bill, the $2,000 check and the $15 an hour. Broke both of those promises.
okay, so we're not doing so good here, folks, and we're into April, right?
Yeah,
And
right out
and
of the
people
gate, he
can't
starts
figure
to
out,
breaking promises.
right, and people can't figure out why Democrats are going to lose their asses. This is not hard. So
Yeah,
then
yes.
you go through the reconciliation bill and they cut out everything that everybody was like, wow, this is Biden's agenda.
All
He's
the
going to do
things
it.
that are all the things that are polling well,
Yeah.
they're cutting out or cutting back very, very seriously, cutting the heart out of them. Then they finally get to this compromise in the early summer of 3.5T. Okay, remember, this stuff started at, well, it started at 10T, but then that quickly was pared down to 7T and 6T. But they went with the 6T for some time. And then in the early summer, they decide on a compromise of 3.5T that everybody's going to hold the line on.
And they'll move both bills at the same time with the 3.5T. And who killed that?
It was Nancy Pelosi.
Right. Their
It was,
own
it was Nancy
baby.
Pelosi. When Manchin and Sinema got the infrastructure bill passed through the Senate, because Bernie decided to trust people and not to vote against it, which he could have done. By the way, Bernie could have lined up not just himself, but I think he could have lined up Jeff Merkley, Ed Markey, Sherrod Brown, and Kirsten Gillibrand to go along with him.
So he wasn't standing there alone.
I think there could have been 5 senators who voted against the infrastructure bill on the grounds that it was not wrapped in with the people's infrastructure bill. They could just
Yeah.
have voted against it. But they didn't do that. They decided to trust the leadership instead, which is always a mistake. You can't trust these leaders. They're neoliberal crooks.
You know,
Is what
sure. And
they
I
are.
mean, they craft the narrative months and months and months in advance.
Yes,
Okay.
they do. And the
And
narrative is one of how they're going to cheat people while not seeming to cheat
how
them.
can we conflate all of this so the public doesn't catch on?
Yes.
You know, they leaked out the mileage tax that was in the infrastructure bill, but they were talking about it right at the same time that they were talking about the reconciliation bill. And they conflated that on purpose.
They did. They
Okay.
absolutely did.
They conflated it on purpose. And
They absolutely did. But what happens after they pass the infrastructure bill? After they pass the infrastructure bill through the Senate, Nancy Pelosi immediately starts to crack and she changes sides. Until then, she's with the progressives. She's standing strong with them. The two bills are going to move together. And what happens in September? She starts to crack and she leaves them alone. And by the way, I want to go back when I talk about this to January 3rd of 2021, when the progressives failed to take her head. They had the votes to do it, and they failed to do it. And there were a number of results to that. First of all, in the American Rescue Plan, that was one reason why the $1,400 went through the House and not the $2,000. Because Biden said he wanted the $1,400 and Nancy Pelosi wasn't going to present him with the $2,000 checks instead, which he had all the power in the world to do. So she aided and abetted him in breaking his promise. Afterwards, when the parliamentarian did her thing, and on the basis of that, Schumer took the $15 an hour out of the bill, didn't put the House bill on the floor that had $15 an hour in it, but instead stripped it from the bill before it went to the floor, forcing Bernie to try to put it back in through an amendment, which allowed the conservative caucus people in the Senate to vote against putting the $15 an hour back without seemingly having to vote to tank the whole package. If Schumer puts that bill on the floor with the $15 an hour in it, then the conservatives, including Manchin and Sinema, have to vote against the American Rescue Plan when everybody's waiting for their $2,000 check. So Schumer protected them by stripping that out of the bill, and probably protected Biden too, because maybe Biden really didn't want to fulfill the $15 an hour promise. So that was happening back then. That would not have happened if some other speaker had been the Speaker of the House. If Debbie Dingell had been Speaker of the House, no way would that have happened. No way would she have allowed Schumer to strip it out without saying to Schumer, you strip it out, it comes back to us, it's going right back in, it's being shipped over to you, and we're going to call for a conference committee right away. Because we all ran on $15 an hour, and as long as I'm alive, we're not going to break that promise. I think Debbie Dingell certainly would have said that to them had she become the Speaker on January 3rd. But apart from that, so Nancy Pelosi hurt them there. She also hurt the progressives when she allowed the two infrastructure bills to be split up.
Right.
They were supposed to be one bill, all negotiated through reconciliation. The whole idea of putting these on two tracks and giving the conservatives the opening to try to split them up, that whole thing was done by Schumer, Kay, and Pelosi, by Democratic leadership. That was so stupid. It was their desire to have something bipartisan that caused that. If there had been another Speaker in the House who didn't care about the bipartisanship, that Speaker would have said, there's one reconciliation bill we're passing here, and that reconciliation bill is going to have the conventional infrastructure and it's going to have the people infrastructure all in it. And if you don't like it, then you can lump it, because that's what we're passing out of the House. And if the conservatives don't like that, they're going to have to tank the whole thing, including the infrastructure stuff they like.
So
that's what should have been done.
But didn't Biden come out and say he wanted this to be bipartisan, and then that's when that all happened?
Yes, but they didn't have to do what Biden said he wanted.
Yes, but he did say it.
They're not elected to do what the president says he wants. They're elected to represent their districts and the interests of their districts. And the progressive Congress people of the CPC are supposed to represent the interest of their districts and not the interests of Joe Biden. I'm sorry.
No, I know. I do know that. I know that. But, I kept hoping, and I've said this, and anybody who's heard me on here has heard me say it, but I'll say it again. The honeymoon is over, right? A president usually does enjoy, when you have the House and the Senate and the Oval, a certain amount of, we're all in lockstep. We're going to do this. We're going to do this together, right? The problem here is that once again, we keep running up against the same neoliberal, stupid stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And this is why Terry McCullough lost. All this stuff, right? Because all of this stuff we have hit on from the start of this conversation hits to the heart of every darned Democrat and Republican.
Yes, and it's why Biden's approval rating is so low.
In the tank, and it's going to go lower.
Just imagine a situation if Biden had passed the American Rescue Plan as promised, okay, and as written in the case of the $15 per hour bill. And then he had immediately gone on to do the things that I listed as part of a series, okay, of executive orders. And then he moved ahead with nothing bipartisan. Didn't stop, okay, to negotiate any bipartisan. And when the Republicans started complaining about that, he could have said, look, you can make this bipartisan. Just vote for it.
Right.
That's all you got to do. If the stuff is good, then you vote for it. If you think the stuff is bad, then don't vote for it. I dare you. I dare you. If you think it's bad, don't vote for it, because the American people, 70% of them like it, 65% like this provision, 85% like that provision. Go ahead. If you think it's so bad, then go ahead and stand on principle and vote for it.
Which used to be how politics worked.
Well,
before we flooded it all with the corporate interests and all the damn money. Because
that's
not so long ago.
True. That's not entirely true.
Well, but it was a way better, Joe. It was way better.
It was way better, but they were doing bipartisan crap in the 50s and 60s. But it was also true that in those days, sometimes the bipartisan bills were good. I mean, that's how they got the civil rights bills through, after all.
Joe, the economy was doing great back then.
And the economy was different, and there were other issues that were very important, and there were Republicans in office who acted like Americans instead of corporate stooges.
Exactly.
And there were a lot of good ones. I don't think we've had a good Republican in office since, since the early 1990s. It's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, and Laura's saying, for those of us that are awake, many of us never gave them a honeymoon. I mean, leftists and even just sane people never gave Biden a honeymoon. But I'm just talking about those that are sitting on the hill that they're trying to whip votes out of, basically. But yes, I know.
Right. So let's go through a few more of the comments, and then we'll come back to this stream we're doing in terms of the outline of the history of this and how it all developed. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to get to the climax, which is the caving of the progressives yet again and the implications of that. So Laura says, why don't they choose a really strong candidate in a very tried and true left independent voting district and run a national campaign to crack the Congress? They need a superstar, someone lots of people would get excited by. Well, first of all, I'd have to think of a superstar. Then they'd have to select, a voting district. There are some voting districts where they could do some good. If they could find a superstar and run that superstar against a Hakeem Jeffries and beat Hakeem Jeffries, that would be an enormous contribution. Get his ass kicked out of office. That would be a great thing to do. Anyway, that's my take on that comment, Laura.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
You know,
hard because
it's hard.
the DC, they've got all the machine behind them as far as money goes. You
All
saw
the
what they've
machine
done.
behind him, all the money in the world,
Yeah,
more money than Joe Crowley had.
right.
He's gonna have $10 million to defend that congressional seat.
Exactly.
But also, he would be getting a lot of people's. He or she would be getting a lot of people's money. Maybe Marianne Williamson should move there, and she should run against Hakeem Jeffries as a Green to crack the Congress. She might be able to win there.
God, that might be interesting, wouldn't it?
That might be really interesting, boy. And Mehdi Hassan gives my take, quote, Democrats need to recognize the real challenge isn't about policy. It's about finding ways to brand the Republicans in the same way that the Republicans have branded Democrats.
Yeah, okay, go for it. I'm not doing that.
Okay, I think this is a typical mass media neoliberal crap take. It is about the policy and finding ways to communicate what that policy is and what it does for people. It's not about finding ways to brand the Republicans. It's about finding ways to honestly and properly brand Democratic candidates running in particular districts. And not simply brand them. There has to be reality behind it. Those Democrats have to be ready and willing to fight until the end for the policies they want to pass.
Yeah, I'm really tired of look over there, brand the red and the blue. You know what? This all comes down to what are the policies that are going to help the American people versus the policies that are going to be corporate profit machines.
Yeah,
Right?
because what's the real problem here? Okay, Democrats brand themselves
Right.
in a very, very good way, and then they fail to deliver. So they undermine their own branding. That's the
Well, because
problem.
the people have not traditionally paid that much attention. Okay. Their old voting bloc, this is what's going on. The generation that has been their steadfast voting bloc forever, all right, are getting older. The attrition is starting to happen. Those of us that are younger, we are of the information age. We don't watch the dumb propaganda tube, okay? But that generation, a lot of them are still swallowing it day in and day out like it's real news. What we've got now is a huge voting bloc that are those people's children, and there's their grandchildren. And what also has happened, the ACA has caught up with the seniors on Medicare. Now they're getting screwed just like we've been getting screwed for
Yeah,
10
because of
damn years.
Medicare Advantage.
So now the seniors who didn't have a dog in this hunt because
Have
they
a
had
dog in the
Medicare,
have a
and they
dog in the
didn't have
fight
to
now.
worry for the most part, right? I'm not talking about the poor. I know that there's exceptions to every rule, but I'm talking about the Democratic, steadfast, older voting bloc. They killed them too.
Yep.
Now we're all awake. Now we're all talking. Now they're starting to realize because they
That's
didn't.
very, very true, Lisa.
They didn't.
Very, very true.
Okay. The Democrats are toast if they don't deliver. And they don't have very long. And we have power, guys.
I think
We have to
that
organize.
Mehdi Hassan's take is pure nonsense. You have to remember who Mehdi Hassan is. He's a mainstream commentator working on Peacock because what MSNBC wanted to do was to put together some, I don't know what to call them, stations or networks, okay, or programs which would have a different branding than the MSNBC branding that would seem to people to be like alternative media. So Mehdi has some takes that are unconventional and that make sense, but he's really someone who's a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
He's a Trojan horse from the mainstream media to
Yeah.
try to
Absolutely.
get people from the alternative media coming to see him.
Oh, Joe. Joe, you need to go out and come back in. Something's going on. You're frozen.
Lisa,
Oh, there you are.
yes, and there you are too. We seem to
You
have
froze. I could still see me, I think.
right, but for me, there was a break in your stream. In other words, for my interface, there was a break both in my stream and in your stream at the same time.
I kept moving
And then
here.
it came back. So Goat Start says,
You're better off, Carmen. Carmen says she doesn't know who Mehdi Hassan is.
hi, Holly Horn. Carmen says, great point by Mehdi. Reflect them and they'll crumble. I don't think it's a great point. I don't think it would be effective, okay, at all. The only thing that's going to be effective for them is that they have to
Deliver.
deliver.
They've got to deliver. They've got to deliver. But this is an opportunity for activists. This is an opportunity for us to be emboldened, okay? The media is trying to sell some spin on how this was the progressives' fault. They look like fools, and they know it. Okay? They know it. And believe me, I will be really honest with you. I can feel Neera Tanden sitting as the secretary of the White House staff right now. She got in there and everything went upside down. The media press, the vibes, all of that. I can feel it.
Yeah,
So,
maybe. I don't know. But
I can feel it. I can feel it. This is the kind of
okay.
gaslighting, hubris stuff that was coming out 5-6 years ago. So anyhow,
And the kind of stuff that's been coming out from her for years and years, not just 5, 6 years ago,
yeah,
but
but now,
continuously.
yeah,
And
but now it's coming
and
out here.
this campaign to blame the progressives for everything. Whatever
Right.
you do wrong, blame the progressives.
That's Neera.
I
That's
got news for
Neera.
you. That doesn't get you to beat the Republicans.
Yeah.
You want to win the seats in Congress. What you got to do is stop blaming the progressives and start delivering things for people.
Well, they haven't been blaming the progressives, you know? I mean, for a big while now, that's not been the fight, right?
Right, but
The
they were
fight came
blaming the
back last
progressives
week.
after the results of the election.
No. That it started last week. It really did. What was the
No,
first thing?
right after the results, okay, of the election.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but some stuff started
They,
happening even before that.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I
go
can't
ahead, go
remember
ahead.
before that. What I remember is that right after the election, and remember, they didn't have the Senate yet at that point.
Oh,
It looked
okay, go
like
ahead.
they were not going to get the Senate.
Yes.
There were results where Democrats lost House seats, and there was a whole big campaign from the centrists to blame it on the progressives,
Right.
even though progressive House seats were not lost. Only
Right.
centrist House seats
Right.
lost.
Right.
And the idea somehow was that there was some kind of magic going on, that what the progressives were doing was defeating the centrists,
Yeah, it was
while somehow
defund the
all of the
police, I think.
progressives were invulnerable to these trends because they did just fine. It was the centrists who got
All the
afraid.
progressives that ran on Medicare for All won.
They did win. They
Mm-hmm.
did win.
That's what that was.
Right. And none of the more centrist people who ran on Medicare for All were defeated
Right.
either. The only
Right.
ones who were defeated were people who ran against Medicare for All and who ran on not doing anything for their constituents.
So what happened?
Yeah,
They
people, okay,
buried
like
Medicare for
Abigail
All. No.
Spanberger, okay, Elan Luria, Elaine Luria, Also Alyssa Slotkin. They all had very, very close votes. And they blamed that on the progressives. And of course, there were other centrists who simply lost their seats as well. And so the centrists who got a big scares in their districts were blaming the progressives for the loss of those seats. Then the breach seemed to heal a little when the Democrats won the 2 Senate seats, in Georgia. And for a while, the two sides weren't fighting.
Yeah, they better shut up, because it was, look who put those people in, who worked for them to get in, who took it on the chin everywhere. It was like taboo to say, please, make a stink about this. We need to win these 2 Senate seats, right? We took hell for that.
Yeah, right. And by the way, both of those senatorial candidates ran as progressive candidates.
Yes, they did.
Both Warnock, and also what's
Ossoff.
yeah, John Ossoff. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So Kay says, yes, I love Medi, and Kay says, need to start calling the GOP fascists. Carmen said, sorry, I should have said to mirror them. That is the Republicans. Sunny Deg says, someone with charisma, but they would have to know MMT, and they would have to be a green. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a green who knows MMT and who has some charisma, and his name is Rodolfo Cortez Barragan. He is a good-looking young man with a PhD from Stanford, who's very nice, very quiet, also very forceful, who knows MMT very well, and who is very articulate. And he would be a great candidate if he had any kind of backing. But if he got put right into the middle of New York, something like that, he would have to be able to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, it's expensive to run there.
And nobody knows him there. Steve Gunzo says, sorry, but ours bad isn't the answer. No, I don't think it's the answer.
No, it can't be, you guys. I mean, we
answer
can't
is
divide
use
each other.
your power to deliver. Carmen says, these lost because Biden gypped everyone out of $600. Laugh out loud. Nope, I'm not dropping it. Kay says, parliamentarian needs to go.
Yes, she does.
Harris could get rid of her too, I think.
I don't think so.
No.
She's Schumer's.
She's Schumer's, yeah. Schumer's the majority leader. He gets to control who the Senate staff is. He's the one who gets to fire her, and he has to do it. Cindy Degg says Biden's stuck in the Stone Age. And Lana says the Republicans are deaf in the fascist realm, especially the Trumpers. But that is no excuse for the lame, weak, TS, bait and switch Democrats. Absolutely. And Sandy says, hashtag, where's the damn bill?
Yeah.
It's pigeonholed in the Ways and Means Committee. In other words, it's Richie Neal sitting on top of it at the behest of Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, that's the thing. All roads lead to Nancy.
All roads lead to Nancy. All roads validate the idea that her head should have been cut off on January 3rd.
And the progressives can do that.
Right. But
they can do it. Explain that, Joe. Explain that why.
At that time, they failed to do it.
But why could we do it now?
We could do it now because there is a possibility to run a motion called a vacate the chair motion.
Right.
What a vacate the chair motion does is somebody gets up and says, the chair is vacant. Who is the chair? The Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House, is Nancy Pelosi. Now, it used to be a privileged motion that any member of Congress could raise. But after a vacate the chair motion was run on John Boehner, when Nancy Pelosi got back into power, she changed the rules. So the only vacate the chair motion that would be a privilege motion, which is basically one that would be guaranteed to get a floor vote in a few business days, is a vacate the chair motion introduced by a party conference, either by a party conference or a major party committee, an official party committee,
which the CPC is.
which the Congressional Progressive Caucus is. Generally speaking, Republicans have these party conferences, and the Democrats have these key committees, okay, of leaders. So the term committee I'm sorry, it's an official party caucus, okay, is the proper term. So it's the Democrats who have the official party caucuses and the Republicans who have the party conferences. The language of the rule says it has to be an official party caucus or an official party conference in order to take account, okay,
Take care of both names on
parties
both
and
sides.
their terminology. Right. So, the CPC is one of the only official Democratic Party caucuses. It actually has a budget from the House as an official party caucus. The head of that caucus is Jayapal.
Mm-hmm.
And Jayapal could run a vacate the chair motion in the name of the caucus on Nancy Pelosi and bring to a vote whether she remains the Speaker of the House or not. That vote would involve both the Republicans voting and also the Democrats voting, because the Speaker of the House is an officer of the whole House, not just an officer of one party. Okay, so the whole House gets to vote, and so Kevin McCarthy would get something like 212 or 213 votes from the Republicans. Nancy Pelosi has to actually get a majority of those who are voting, so she would have to get 214 votes. There are so many progressive votes that would be there to kill her chances. This would not lead, okay, to the election of Kevin McCarthy, because 213 is not going to be a majority of those voting.
Right.
That's the key. So he could never become speaker. She could never become speaker. There would be vote after vote after vote. After she saw she could not win after 4 or 5 rounds of voting, she would have to withdraw, and then others would step forward as they try to actually create a majority of the Democratic Party to vote for them. There would be no possibility of a bipartisan choice in this because the parties are too split. So it would have to be a Democratic majority. It would have to be someone who could get votes from the right wing of the Democratic Party, the left wing of the Democratic Party, and the center of the Democratic Party, which in the House is to the left of center. So progressives like Debbie Dingell, Jan Schakowsky, Rosa DeLauro, Karen Bass, they are more at the center of the caucus, but they're way to the left of where Nancy Pelosi has been sitting and where Nancy Pelosi has been voting. So the result would be a new speaker who would be to the left, okay, of Nancy Pelosi. That's the only one who would be able to get a majority of votes. There are 5 or 6 of those people. I think the most likely one to emerge from the struggle would probably be Debbie Dingell. I'm not entirely sure why I think that. I think it has to do with her family tradition, has to do with her husband, has to do with her personality. It has to do with her longtime support for Medicare for all.
I'm reading Laura's comment, and I know I've skipped ahead, but it's pertinent to what we were just talking about. And she's saying, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say why Jayapal would never make a motion to vacate the chair. And she's saying that the establishment will go after her with the full weight of their coffers to primary her or do something, release something damaging on her. Can anyone make the motion to vacate the chair is the question, other than Jayapal?
Oh, a whole bunch of people could make a motion to actually vacate the
So
chair.
it doesn't have to be Jayapal.
No, it doesn't have to be Jayapal. Okay, it could be anybody, but that motion would never get a vote. It would be pigeonholed, okay, by Nancy Pelosi.
Well, if she's the chair, how can she pigeonhole a vacate the chair motion?
Because she is not forced to have a floor vote with respect to that particular motion because it's not a privileged motion. According to the rule changes, the privileged motions can only be introduced by the party caucuses.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that's how she blocked that.
Could
used to be a
Pocan
privilege.
introduce it, say?
Huh?
Does it have to be Jayapal coming out of the CPC because she's the chair of the CPC?
She's the only one who could act on behalf of the CPC.
Okay, so let me
claim to be acting with the authority of the CPC. Now, we could run actually a preliminary vote to get rid of Jayapal as the chair of the CPC and appoint someone who would be willing, to do a vacate the chair motion, with respect to Pelosi. But you'd have to find someone who'd be able to get a majority of the CPC to vote for them, as opposed to Jayapal. CPC is very large. You have 100 people in that caucus, I think, or 95, 96. It's something around there. Exactly. Might be down to 90 now because, they were trying to pare it down. But it's a lot, of people. And so, and there are many people who don't belong in the CPC, like Hakeem Jeffries is still a member of the CPC at this point. So there are Pelosi's people who are members of the CPC. They're not going to vote for Jayapal, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on the progressives to try to get enough of them to vote for her and to stop the other progressives from kicking her out as the chair of the CPC now that she's basically gone establishment. Okay, so I really don't think that a vacate the chair motion would work at this point without actually getting Jayapal behind it. I think we most definitely need her.
Well, okay, so let me go at this because the last 24 hours have changed a lot of attitudes, Joe. And I think it's sent some chills down the spines of a lot of the right people. I mean, the Democrats couldn't even get the same message. They couldn't all get on the same message before they hit the microphones last night. They were so scared of what happened. Did you notice that? Like, they didn't even all have the same message. Quite frankly.
They're so full of crap.
Well, but they usually come out parroting the same words, for God's sake, is my point. Okay.
And I think that's a good point. I think they didn't have a chance to frame the same words. Even though they should have expected this, the handwriting was on the wall. They never gotten together to plan what they would do in case McAuliffe lost.
Okay, so here we go. This is what I wanted to just spit out here. I think they're starting to realize what 2022 is going to look like. I really do. I really do. Because look at how they freaked out. And they should have. Why they were asleep, I don't know. We could all see that. We've been tweeting about this for months, right? And it's
Yeah.
only gotten worse. So what I'm trying to say herein is I'm not necessarily sure that we know what Pramila Jayapal would be like out from under Nancy Pelosi as called for by progressives. Okay? That's a different animal than being anointed and Nancy just patting her on her head and saying, "You're next." Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but I think that Jayapal's caving to Pelosi tends to suggest that she would also cave to the centrists, okay, and to the establishment, because she has the power to say no. Okay.
I just
And
honestly think that
when you have the power to say no and demand that what you want actually get into bills, and you do not exercise that power, you show that you're a patsy and that you're unwilling to fight for the things that you're supposed to believe in. That signals to the other side that you could be bought, and they would
or that
move,
you're scared.
or that you're scared. They would move very strongly to buy her and to scare her at the same time.
Well,
They
I
would
mean, I
do
kind of think
both
that's what's
at
going
the
on,
same.
but we either do we I'm just sitting here desperately trying to think of a way, and there's not it doesn't have to come out of my head or, your head, but that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, that's
We
why
are
we're
going
here.
to get creamed, you guys, one way or another.
Oh, the Democrats are
If
going to get
there's
creamed.
I mean, I don't mean the Democrats or the Republicans, either way, whichever one is in there, they're going to cream us.
Yes, they're going to
Okay?
cream us. Yeah.
So, you know, we've got a year.
Right. So we have to get into the streets and cream them before they cream us. That's basically what it amounts to. It's becoming self defense now. We have got to present them with a color revolution of some kind that really changes the regime. I'm not saying one that actually destroys the regime by force. That's not what happened, okay, in the color revolutions. What happened in the color revolutions is they got so many people into the street that the government simply gave up the ghost and turned over the governments to other people who had the support of the street. So they bow to the street heat. There's no, there's a possibility they would have to bow to the street heat here too, if that heat were hot enough, if enough people were in the street. So it's our responsibility to do what we can to put those people into the streets.
So we've got General Strike Summit, Strike Giving, or Strike Vember. I like Strike Giving, but Strikes Giving better. Is strikes are catchy, guys, and it's catching on. Um, that's that. Don't underestimate that because labor empowers labor,
Yes,
and
I'm not
that's a
going
big
to
deal.
underestimate that. Uh,
Well, now I'm just
I don't
talking about all the
underestimate
things
that
that are
at all.
going on, right? So that also empowers the general strike idea. We've got the Fred Hampton left that are doing the general strike summit on the 11th or 12th and 13th, I think, where they're gonna sit down and they're actually gonna formulate what we've got to do, right?
Yeah, something like that. Who's invited to the summit?
Laura has been invited. Um, Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't. Ram, not enough Ram, out of Ram. Laura, who's coming to the summit? All of Fred Hampton left. I awkward, I think, is coming. I'm not positive. I mean, I haven't followed up, but we can look that up.
Okay.
Um, but if we're going to get in the streets, I think we're going to get a real good opportunity because people are going to be really ticked when this bill either passes, like breadcrumbs, looking like breadcrumbs, or, somebody kills it, it goes nowhere, the infrastructure bill passes, and then nobody votes for the bipartisan bill. Who knows? Who knows? Didn't the last I even was willing to look, I had seen that Jayapal was decoupling the bills again. Is that what happened? I don't even know.
We don't know whether that has really happened. We know that that is what she is now talking about. She is saying that the CPC is ready to trust the word of the president. I don't think she knows. I don't understand why she doesn't know this, but by now, large segments of the public have to be believing that you cannot trust the word of this president.
My God, that's such a
Because
line that she's been fed.
nothing he has run on has come to pass. So saying we're going to trust the words of the president doesn't make you look like a virtuous individual. It makes you look like an abysmally stupid one. That's the way she looks now. And
When
she's
you
got to know that she looks that stupid, but she's still accepting looking that stupid for the sake of appearances. So, what kind of leader is she?
Now we're back to what I've been saying to you for a couple of weeks now.
Yes.
We don't have representation anymore.
Oh yeah, I know that.
This isn't real, right? I was just going to ask you that once you get into Congress, do you get free acting lessons or do you get an acting coach on staff? Like, how's this go?
I don't know how it goes, but
Are they union? I mean, seriously, like, what is going on up there?
I don't know exactly what is going on up there.
They hold auditions to see who can hold the camera and like act as well as possible.
Okay, to be candid with you, I don't have a lot of confidence in Ocasio-Cortez anymore, or any
No,
confidence actually
right.
in her. I mean, I think she's a crazy, mixed-up kid.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting there.
Yeah. Okay. But with respect to Rashida Tlaib,
Yeah, well, she wouldn't do something like this. She'd be a great speaker.
well, I'm not saying she'd be a great speaker.
I
What
think
I'm
she would
saying
be.
is that she's not a caver. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think.
Yeah, never seen her
So,
cave yet.
so I don't see her going along with Jayapal. I don't know if Jayapal can pull the whole caucus along with her. But if there's a rebellion,
That's what I'm looking for.
if there's a rebellion from the squad, and they can pull together 8 to 10 votes, then the infrastructure bill does not pass the House. I don't think. Okay, and uh, of course, the other side has the votes to tank the reconciliation bill up in the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
so neither bill gets passed. And there might be enough. There might be enough of the progressives in the CPC that would stick together around the nucleus of the squad that there'd be no possibility at all of passing the infrastructure bill. I don't think 10 votes would be enough to stop the passage of the infrastructure bill because they'll get some bipartisan support from the Republican side on that particular bill.
They didn't touch it, did they? It doesn't have to go back to the Senate, right?
It doesn't have to go back to the Senate, but it has to be passed by the House.
Damn it. To
Okay, so
hell.
the question is, how many Republican votes can Nancy Pelosi get for the bipartisan infrastructure bill? And how many of the CPC will stick together? Okay, now what Jayapal has been saying all along is that she's got 50 to 60 of the CPC that would stick together to
And
tank
vote it
the
down.
infrastructure bill. Now that she's caved, how many of the 50 to 60 will cave with her? Will they all cave with her?
I say there's a rebellion. I think that there's somebody up there that's probably just as ticked as we are.
Well, if there is somebody, that somebody is going to be Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, those two, and Cori Bush maybe.
Corey, yeah,
Yeah,
bet so.
and maybe
Bowman,
Jamal Bowman
Bowman,
as
yep,
well. And by the way, if they're all pissed about it and starting a movement against it, then probably Ocasio Cortez will join them because I think she needs their protection.
yeah. I don't think she's going to want to be there without them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whatever power play or whatever was going on with her, wherever she was thinking she was going, she ain't going there.
No, she's
Not
not
going
going.
anywhere. She's going to have to figure out how to get her fight back.
Right, because right now she's presenting a terribly weak image.
Yeah, she is.
The weakest image of everybody in the squad. She began with a very clear identity, and she's been watering that identity down since. People don't know who she is.
What
And that's
about,
very difficult. Okay, but now we're at the caving part.
yeah,
What
we
motivated
skipped a lot, but yeah.
Jayapal to cave? What caused her to cave? I think that's a question we have to ask. Did she always plan to cave when she got to this point?
I think Jayapal would have to be told that she had to cave. She's not coming up with that on her own. We realize that, right? We're not pretending that she's coming up with this by
Well,
herself.
why should they have to cave? I mean, what would they do to her? Would they give her a very stiff primary challenge with a whole bunch of money against her?
I don't know. They
They
could do
might do that.
they could do all kinds of stuff.
They can do all kinds of things, but if she held the line on the bill and forced them to go back with the 3.5T bill, she'd be a hero in her district. They'd never get her out.
Well, okay, so Bernie had them. He had, as long as we were hearing that Bernie was like, pretty defiant and steadfast and solid, they were there. I haven't heard a lot. I mean, I've heard him say things like, why on earth would we cut X, Y, and Z? The
Yes,
last
I've
time
heard. Yes, I've heard him say things just the other day that the cutting taxes for the rich was just unacceptable.
yeah.
Well, Bernie, if it's unacceptable, why don't you declare you're going to vote against it if it has that in it?
Yeah,
If it's unacceptable,
exactly.
why
But,
don't you say that?
well, because I don't think they know what this is going to come down to. I really do think, Joe, that last night might have changed some things. Seriously.
I think that's a possibility. It's certainly a possibility. It might stiffen the backs, okay, of all the progressives because it weakens the centrists
Right.
tremendously.
Oh, you should have seen
So,
it. You should have seen, like, just throwing in a listserv today, something about I think it was Matt Duss had a thread about, progressives promising people Medicare and then stripping out their ability to not only get Medicare, but now, drug prices and this, that, and the other thing. And it was just like, this is what keeps going on. There are so many examples. We didn't even hit all of them. I really did want to get to the Nina Turner bullshit and, the Medicare for All marches and nobody retweeting the words for 2 months. And then, wow, Cori Bush shows up in DC. I mean, there was a lot more of that stuff that's gone on. And we all know this, right? So at this point, I really, really just wanted to say, hey, look, what happened last night and this is in a room with a lot of centrists, what happened last night, we need to pay attention to. I hope we can all, stand up and lead here. What's going on is not working. Oh my God, you would have thought I took the baby's lollipop, for God's sake. Total meltdown. Total meltdown. They know that it's bad. They're just in denial. And I'm not talking about Congress people. I'm not talking about party people. I'm talking about people that are, they're voters, but they consider themselves organizers, whatever. They're not organizers. But, these are people that get together and talk about policy. They lost it. They lost it at the suggestion that we are heading over the cliff. Like, I think these people just sit in their little bubbles and listen to each other because that's all they can handle.
I think you're right. Absolutely right about that.
So we have an opportunity here. And I think it's a call to action for us as the left, right? Strike while the iron's hot.
So what do you think we should do?
Well, I like your idea of getting in the streets. I just think that we've got the strike actions going on. We can get into the streets about a lot of things. I think when the reconciliation bill finally hits and it looks like crap, we can get into the streets. I don't know. Can you get everybody in the streets to tell them to kill the bill? Can we do that? Because it's kind of like getting into the streets at the right moment is important for the right command.
The streets at the right moment is very, very important. We might be able to stiffen their backs to kill both bills.
I've been tweeting that out for a while.
Right. But we'd probably have to get, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million into the streets, of DC to really stiffen their backs. It would have to be an impressive demonstration, one the mass media could not avoid, that they would have to cover it. It would have to be impressively large. And one thing that would make it impressive is large numbers of people calling for killing the bill. That would be unusual.
Yeah.
Very unusual. So
that would be calling on the Congress to kill the infrastructure bill, the one that's already gone through the Senate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Calling on the Congress to kill the infrastructure bill. Right.
Which means we'd be leaning on the Progressive Caucus.
Right. To kill the infrastructure bill.
That actually might work. Seriously, that might work.
Yeah, maybe calling on them to kill the infrastructure bill and pass the reconciliation bill at the 3.5T level.
But they'd have to go back and put it back together.
Demands.
They'd have to go put it back together, right?
They'd have to go to the original 3.5T bill they had in mind. But yes, and pass that. If so many people demanded that they kill the infrastructure bill and pass the bill for the people, the reaction of the Democratic Party would probably be, we're in trouble if we don't pass the people's bill at the original 3.5T. And we're in trouble with our donors if we don't pass the infrastructure bill.
So do what you said you were going to do.
So we'll go back to the original agreement and pass both and hope the people don't hate us too much.
I feel like I'm talking to my first husband with all this nonsense. Not you, Joe. Just how this is so ridiculous. We're right back to what I said the first time.
Okay. Carmen Mina says, "Hi, John Bonnie. I understand the Hulk may appear tonight. How did Ms. Hoffman do in Jersey?" Well, we've gone through that.
We can't find her percentages anywhere.
Well, we did find, the percentage that she got.
Oh, that's right. She got like
0.31,
nothing, like 5,000 votes or something.
something like that.
Yeah, it was almost nothing.
0.31%. 0.31%.
It's hard to believe.
Well, she had no money. I mean, what was she trying to do? Run on with $20,000 or something like that? For the gubernatorial race in New Jersey.
Yeah, but she told me specifically what she was bringing attention to, and I can't remember what it was. She was very specific, and it made the sense that I don't have enough RAM. Anyhow, we'll have to ask her again.
Right, but probably she didn't have enough power to get it out there. In other words, completely blocked, from the mainstream, completely relying, on the alternative media to get stuff out there in one particular state. Doesn't work.
We should talk to Shane about doing a green show. At least getting them their own platform.
Yeah, I think that would be a good show.
It would be a great show.
Yeah, Carmen says, "I read a headline that Sinema changed her stance about being a hard ass when it came to lowering drug prices. So perhaps Dems will stop pussyfooting around."
Ooh, have they gone and put some pressure on Sinema now? Now that they lost?
I don't know if they put some pressure on her or whether the defeat put some pressure on her.
Well, the defeat would put them to put pressure on her. You don't think she woke up to this by her selfies, do you?
I don't know. She's a pretty smart cookie. She is a smart cookie. I don't think she's playing to get elected again in 2024.
No, she probably wants to go be a lobbyist or something.
She's angling to become, just to get a lucrative job. I don't think she's going to be very successful as a lobbyist because I think people are going to hate her. In other words, the people in the Congress.
So she's going to go work for one of the pharmaceutical industries that she's taking money from?
I think so, but I also think that she'll be very unsuccessful as a lobbyist because she will have caused so much defeat for the Democrats in 2022. She and Manchin are going to be blamed for such a defeat.
I wouldn't be surprised if she goes Republican, Joe.
That's tough in Arizona because the Republicans are very right wing and they're not going to nominate her for the Senate. They're going to nominate a hardcore Trumper.
How much time she got on her term?
Till 2000. She
up next year?
No, she has to run in 2024.
24. So
she won originally in 2018. Okay. So she's good until January 3rd of 2025. So Steve Day says one good win was won in ranked choice voting, in Indianapolis, and he leaves a question mark. I don't know about that.
I don't know. I'll look it up again.
Jeff Denton says, Steve Day, she hates me because I hate money. I know the thing that is destroying the entire country and already fried the political system. I don't know who the she was in that.
Who? Oh, I think, was he talking to Carmen or Lana, maybe? I can't remember. Talking to somebody in the thread.
Yeah, talking to somebody in the thread, but about some other person, I think. I'm not sure who. Okay, so let's skip ahead to some other comments.
Minnesota was the ranked choice voting.
Oh, that's what passed? Okay, in Minnesota, ranked choice voting passed. That was very good then.
No. The one green that won, that got elected with 30.8% with the 30,000 votes, that was the ranked choice voting election.
All right, and that was in Hennepin County, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Samantha, pre Stinson. Stinson? Yeah, Stinson.
Yes, I think that was it. Right. Yeah, I read that earlier. And Lionel says the sex part is actually from Saxon, from Wessex, England, from West Saxon original. I used to live in Middlesex, New Jersey, in grade school. Yeah, there is a Middlesex in there. Of course, there is a Middlesex that's in the Boston area, okay, as well, uh, as we know from the poem, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, which makes mention of every Middlesex village and farm. So there's a Middlesex up there too. And okay, let's skip over a few more of these. Uh, and Laura's comments about the Greens, Mehdi Hassan's comment. Uh, we've gone through a number of these comments before. Steve Gonzo says President Biden, not POTUS, United States. November 1st, healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. And with the beginning of the open enrollment period today, we can continue delivering on that promise. That is a laugh. That is such a laugh. How do they expect to get away with these lies all the time? I've never
Just wait. Just
I've never
wait.
understood that. Yeah, just wait.
Wait until all of these seniors that are now enrolling in Medicare Advantage plans, because there's a lot, there's a ton of seniors that are qualifying for Medicare this year. And they go thinking they're getting Medicare just like all their friends have, and they find out they signed up for an Advantage plan, and they go down to Florida and realize they're not covered.
Yep.
Okay,
That's going to be terrible.
It's going to be ugly.
Yep. And Kay says, I hope they don't screw up SS checks with that debt ceiling crisis, that ridiculous debt ceiling. Sandy Degg says, Joe is getting salty. Well, actually, I'm usually very salty, as Bonnie knows. Evelina says, he's just doing what the hardliners and the party tell him to. Sandy says, they would just give the people what they want. That party would be so popular. But no, they couldn't do anything for us. They screwed us over. We're supposed to bend over and take it. No, we're not. We're supposed to kick them in the teeth.
We've got them scared, and now is the time to keep them scared.
And Carmina says, I read Lisa Murkowski is considering supporting Dems on something, but I forgot the detail. Damn headache. If it's anything, it's probably the voting rights bill that she's considering supporting Dems, okay, on something. And Laura says, I'm back. Did you even know I went away? No, we were too busy discussing your previous comments, Laura. She made that comment at 10:04. And Ghost Art says, Tulsi Gabbard, Terry McAuliffe's loss is a victory for all Americans. Why? Because it was a resounding rejection of efforts to divide us by race, the stripping of rights of parents, parental rights, and arrogant but deaf leaders. I'm not sure I agree with that.
What's the parental rights thing?
And entirely. Well, the parental rights thing with respect to the educational system, having a mask mandate for kids.
Oh, for
okay, whatever. And vaccination for kids.
Again, I'd rather not know that. Okay, good. I'm there.
There are lots and lots of people up in arms about that.
Stop.
Including Jimmy Dore is up in arms about that all over the place. Carmen, I think it was voting rights, says Kay. Carmen says, yes, that was it, Kay, thanks. Evelina says, we missed you, welcome back. And Carmen says, what? Go start. I'm not even going to try to decipher that right now. Go start. Maybe smiled at that. Laura Sealing says, yes, but I don't believe any of that is by accident. She she makes maneuvers that will work for the donor class, which is to ensure it will fail. Is the she you're talking about Nancy Pelosi here or Jayapal? Carmen
Yes,
says, "Boy, this is a great convo, meeting of the minds." And
Carmen, you're
Evelina
so good.
says, "Huh?
Thank you. I was just saying, Carmen's so sweet.
Yeah, I know." Evelina says, "The party leaders are traitors. Simple as that." Kay says, "Tulsi needs to go too." Shake my head. Carmen says, "It looks like Biden's heart ain't really in it. He just wanted to be president to fulfill a promise to his dead son." But his dead son wanted him to be president because his dead son thought he'd be able to do something. He
Right?
ain't fulfilling that part of the promise to his dead son. Not so far as I can see. Laura says, "For those of us who are awake, many of us never gave them a honeymoon. If he would have used his power immediately to sign some powerful executive orders, I would have been gobsmacked. But we all knew, or we should have known after being cheated out of 2 primaries, Joe was going to fuck us over big time."
But Joe is going to need to forgive student debt to maybe save the midterms.
Maybe save the midterms.
I mean,
If
if we,
anything's going to save the midterms,
it's that.
yes. But of course, he also has to get the voting rights thing through too, because even if he passes
Oh,
that,
that's right, because we're talking about the Congress. Yep.
yeah, it may not be enough to survive the gerrymander, okay, and the voter suppression, because they're heavily, heavily rigging that. If the Republicans come out of that with a 10-point advantage straight out of the gate, or 11-point advantage, but straight out of the gate, then maybe even forgiving all the student debt isn't going to save the Democrats. It's just too big an advantage to overcome, especially when you've done nothing legislatively at all. You've got nothing through. You're just such a big disappointment.
Well, all the more reason that they should negotiate the drug prices and do the Medicare expansion, because that's their voting block that they can count on. And they would pull Republicans if they did that.
Well, remember, they can cut the prescription drug prices by not even passing things through the Congress, because Biden could license out those drugs, okay, the prescription drugs. He could do that actually through an executive order.
License them out. What do you mean?
When drugs have been under patent for a long time and the federal government was involved, okay, in the production of the drugs,
They can kill the patent?
uh, what they can do is license the drugs out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not actually killing the patent completely. Okay. What you do is you go to the drug manufacturers and you say, "Look, your prices are unreasonable. If you do not lower the prices to such and such a level that we believe, okay, is a reasonable level, then we're going to license these drugs out to generic competition." The federal government has the right to do that. Biden can have it done actually by executive order. That would lower prescription drug prices in many, many areas without congressional action.
we're
He,
talking
he
about
could
Joseph
do the
Biden, though.
same. He could do the same for the vaccines. If he did both of those things, people would immediately feel the result, okay, of doing that. And even if the Democrats weren't able to pass that through Congress, if Biden were to claim he fulfilled the promise by doing those things, he might be able to get people to say, "Oh, yes, you did." It depends on how many drugs he does it for. Um,
How
and
about we just
the
go
fall
back?
in prices is very dramatic. At least 8 Republicans who attended the rally that preceded the deadly Capitol riot were elected to office on Tuesday. They're
What?
embracing
What? Say that again.
at least 8 Republicans who attended the rally that preceded the deadly Capitol riot. were elected to office on Tuesday. They're embracing January 6th, not distancing themselves from it. This is Steve Gonzo who said that.
Are these new or
I don't think.
incumbents?
I think these are incumbents,
Okay.
generally speaking, but I may be mistaken about that. But Ghost Start may be able to fill us in on that. So Laura says, in general, yes, and Lisa, yes. I know you meant your average voters who maybe are still plugged into corporate media. Yeah, I think Lisa did mean that. Carmina says, Grayson could be a superstar. I don't know if he could be a superstar. He has the rhetorical talent, okay, to be a superstar, but Grayson takes corporate money. So he's likely to cave on certain issues. He was part of the caving at the time of passage of the ACA. He was very much against it at first. He sort of held out some. He did some really classic things. For example, he came up with a line that uh, uh, the Republican Party healthcare plan is that if you get sick, die quickly. And he was putting that out in 2009, 2010. And he recited it in such a way that it was very impressive. It had real impact. He does some other very, very cute things too. But when push came to fudge, he got meekly into line and he voted for the horrible Affordable Care Act instead of tanking that act. If the progressives had stood up then and they had voted against that act, then things might have gone better for them in 2010.
But Joe,
Because in
they couldn't read it.
2010, people really hated the ACA at that point.
They couldn't read it. Do you remember that?
They couldn't read it. They couldn't find out exactly what
You
was
didn't
in
know
it.
what was in it. They were just told by Nancy, we have to vote for it.
Yeah. But also the people's reaction to it. They didn't know what was in it.
Right.
There was a lot of propaganda against it. In fact, it was a sellout to the insurance industries and the pharmaceutical industries. And it didn't begin to benefit people in 2014. They started paying taxes for it in 2010, right after it was passed. It was a terrible example of political malpractice on Pelosi's part. And of course, she was dancing around after it. She thought she'd done the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the Democrats campaigned on that, and they got really slaughtered in 2010. And not only did they get slaughtered, that affected the gerrymandering because they got slaughtered in the states as well. Republicans took over quite a lot of the legislatures, and they got to gerrymander the districts. And that's affected state elections and federal elections all through the next decade. It was a disastrous election. And the failures were due to Obama. He wasn't even paying attention to the redistricting. He wasn't even paying attention to the gerrymandering. He was too busy to care about that. Laura Fielding says someone enough people know and who people across the country would donate to. I think the only figure you may be describing there is Jesse Ventura. Ghostart says, anyone here if JFK showed up for the big rally in Texas?
I kind of have a half-hearted or half-witted idea about what that is because I read some stray tweet today.
Okay, what was the half-witted idea?
No, I don't want to go there. Let's just stay out of that rabbit hole. I can't go there.
Okay, good. We'll stay out of the rabbit hole. That's fine. So Laura says, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say why Jayapal would never make a motion to vacate the chair. The establishment will go after her the full weight of their coffers to primary her or release damaging info if they have anything on her. Can anyone make this motion? But even so, the same applies. Well, I think I answered
Yeah, we
that
went through that.
question, and I pointed out that I also didn't think, okay, that Jayapal would go forward, okay, and make that motion. Maybe with enough pressure on her, but they would. It depends on how angry they are at Nancy Pelosi at this point. In the caucuses, they must be pretty angry about her now because if she had maintained a united front with them in September instead of going over to the other side, they would still be in the fight at present. What Manchin and Sinema did would not have been anywhere near as effective, except for the collaboration of Nancy Pelosi in going over to the establishment
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Kay Ryan says Debbie Dingle is good. Laura Fielding says they're all too chicken shit. Yeah, well, of course, that's what we're saying here. We are saying
Yes. Yes, they are. But,
they are chicken shit and that they're cavers and that they've caved. And Steve Day says, hashtag vacate the chair. We have to make evidentiary posts on how it can be done. Same as mint to the coin. And with mint the coin, we don't need to have any evidentiary posts because there are people in the Biden administration who know exactly how that can be done. For example, Jared Bernstein knows exactly how that can be done. Okay, and I'll bet Janet Yellen knows exactly how that can be done. Of course, she's against ever doing that. She's got some nonsense reasons, but that's what she believes. But Biden can call in his advisors and can ask them, how can I mint the coin and why would it make me more popular? And he can get people to advise him on that. There are people in his administration who know the answers to that question. And if they're hazy on any of the answers, they can make a call to Stephanie Kelton and get her in there. And within 2 hours, they'll know all about it. And Laura Fielding says, we couldn't even get any of them to force the vote for Medicare for all, withholding their votes for concessions, let alone actually attempting to really unseat her. Yes, that's right. You're quite right. But that was then,
yeah,
January
this is
3rd.
now.
This is now. And they've gotten screwed. And the question is, are they mad enough to screw anybody back?
Are they scared enough?
Or are they too chicken shit, as you say, Laura, so eloquently?
We
Are they
need
too
to.
chicken shit? And Laura says, she won't get behind shit. She endorsed Adam Smith instead of Sarah Smith in a deep blue district.
Yeah.
She has no political courage or moral conviction.
But she's won.
I'm sorry, she's won what?
She's won. Okay, so we went through this before and we're going back and reading these comments again, but we already worked through the idea that the thing to do right now is to demand that the progressives kill the infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
Right?
That is the thing.
That is the thing that we need to do.
Yeah. That is the thing we need to do right now.
Because there are repercussions from that. If we kill the infrastructure bill, what signals we are sending up there is no damned way are you going to pass that thing after you've given us nothing, right? We demand them to kill that bill, and they need to satisfy public opinion. So the answer here is that we get enough people screaming to kill that infrastructure bill, because that was the deal. They were going to be able to pass that bill out of the Senate as long as they had the agreement that the infrastructure bill was going to move with it.
Yes. Absolutely.
And
That
they need
is
people to
absolutely
like
true.
them. Now would be a great time to fire up the cancel the student debt campaign again. All of it. Because they all know they're in big trouble.
Yeah, they're in deep doo-doo,
So
and he needs to do something special.
we need to start screaming again. Jesus, they couldn't even give us family medical leave, for God's sake.
I know, isn't that incredible?
It's preposterous that they can't figure out why we're losing. They're gonna get wiped out. And at this point, if they don't do something, honest to God, how else are we gonna get rid of them?
Yeah, they are delusional.
They are.
Right. And the result, okay, of their delusions will be that their clocks get cleaned in 2022. And of
And
course,
that's not
once
a
the Republicans grab control of Congress in 2023 and 2024, they will see to it that there's no possibility for the Democrats to win in 2024. Carmen Munoz says the best politician would be a roughneck with nothing to lose, no family, no business, no dirt, and no more fucks to give. Find us such a
yeah, where is he?
yeah, or she.
Or she.
Even
Sure.
when he says we need a very broad coalition with everybody on board.
We're
Steve
working
Johnson.
on that. Knit the revolution. Come join
Hashtag
us.
general strike. Hashtag consumer strike. Hashtag occupy Congress. Hashtag SOS USA. And Steve Gonzo says occupy Pfizer. And Steve Day says that Laura voting on vacate the chair could include plenty of the Republican votes, okay, against Pelosi. It could, Steve, but of course, such a motion would never get to the floor unless an official party caucus got it to the floor. Carmen Munoz says, Joe, isn't the so-called supply chain issue just more artificial scarcity propaganda? Don't
That's not
the
artificial.
military have the truck drivers? No, I don't think, okay, it's artificial because we're talking about
Bottleneck.
the supply chains from overseas to here. And the military don't have any truck drivers that go across the ocean.
Well, and then it's stuff sitting in port and truck drivers dumping loads in places that they usually don't, and it's
Yes.
bottlenecks all over the place.
Yeah, yes, it's just a mess, and the mess was actually caused by the combination of the globalization, okay, and the pandemic, and of course the desire of businesses not to keep stuff, okay, in inventory till they needed it.
Just in time.
Yeah, you know, just in
Great.
time stuff.
Lousy idea.
Right, it was a lousy idea for responding to pandemics.
It's a lousy
And
idea,
for
period.
the economy to come back. So yeah, it was a lousy idea, period. And they're finding that out now.
Well, that's how they got all our jobs overseas, right? How do you manufacture overseas when you need an inventory? Oh, just in time inventory.
Right, right. And that's what they did, and that's what's causing the problems now. So the problems now are being caused by neoliberalism and the effects, okay, of neoliberalism, okay, and globalization. They have nothing to do with the fact that too much money was given to workers, okay, for relief from COVID. That is not it. That is just the manufacturing of the Republican
Oh, for
Party.
heaven's sake, what brain trust came up with that excuse?
The
Who said
usual
that?
brain trust, okay, the usual brain trust, you know, the brain trust, okay, the Republican Party. Something goes wrong, always blame the poor people. That's their brain. That's their formula for success.
Yeah.
Evelyn says we can't be too squeamish or puritanical.
No, now is the time
I,
to get emboldened. I really hope that's what we leave people with tonight, is that
it's time to get emboldened. But the point is, we can't get these cowards, not just the progressive cowards, but even Biden.
Yeah.
His fate as a president is dependent upon him doing a number of bold things right now that he doesn't need to have the collaboration of Congress on. He can do those things, but apparently he's not sufficiently determined or bold to actually do them. Steve Day
I
said,
think we can get him to cancel debt. I think we have a chance.
we have to see.
But we
Steve
gotta be
Day
quick
says,
about it.
okay, upon being first elected to the president, you get orientation. I know. And the squad was complaining about the orientation. You remember?
Yeah.
They were complaining how horrible it was. So they used to think it was horrible. And they used to think, okay, it was baloney. And now they're not acting like the same people. Evelina says, Jay Apollo's wishy-washy. Too bad, not too bad. Terrible. A disaster.
Well, she can be
Carmen says,
wishy-washy on our side.
but Carmen says Ilhan doesn't seem to be a doormat either. And then she changed that to does. Ilhan does seem to be a doormat either. Perhaps you mean a doormat too. Sandy says, I think he will vote against it. Uh, Not sure who he is.
Who will
You
vote
mean
against what?
Bernie? You mean Bernie Sanders? And Carmen says, why the fuck would Bernie care about cutting taxes when he knows MMT? Such a disappointment that he went with the tax and spend a false narrative. Generally, I agree with you. That is a disappointment. But what Bernie has in mind here, of course, is the idea that we're in the middle of a pandemic, okay, and in the middle of very tough times, okay, for very, very many people. So, how can people even talk about cutting taxes for the rich?
Yeah.
He's talking about the issue of fairness and justice here. Okay, he's not talking about the question of whether it matters from the standpoint of government spending. Of course, he knows, okay, it doesn't matter, but he's talking about it from the moral standpoint. Steve Gonzo says, Pentagon review concludes the U.S. drone strike that killed innocent Kabul civilians and children in Afghanistan was not misconduct, okay, and negligence, and does not recommend any disciplinary action. Yeah, of course. Okay, he says, my internet keeps going out, so I guess I'm out here for tonight. Thank you for a great discussion. I love you all. Good night, Kay. We love you too. Evelina says, kill the bill, post it everywhere. Get everyone on the streets before COVID swoops back in.
We don't have a lot of time. We got to kill it now.
Yeah, well, COVID seems to still be around, Carmen, in case you hadn't really noticed it. Sandy Degg says, I voted for Hoffman. Great, Sandy.
That's awesome.
Good for you. And Steve Gonzo says, Pfizer trusts the science and endorse Medicare for all. COVID testing is Medicare for all. COVID vaccines is Medicare for all. Skull, why not free everything else? Hashtag Occupy Pfizer. Hashtag M for M for all. November 15th. Yeah. That's Sharif stuff. Carmina says cinema is going to go into the ugly clothes industry. Shane says Madeline Hoffman came in third in the governor's race in Virginia with 7,511 votes. There were 5 total candidates. She got 3% of the vote. No, she got 0.3% of the vote. Yes, 0.3% of the vote. That's a very small number. Carmen says, thanks, Shane. And Shane says, nearly tying, but still beating the Libertarian candidate. The Socialist Party candidate came in last. Carmen says, spot on, Lisa. Florida will patient dump you in a split second, and they don't give 1 ounce. Well, Laura, I remember nothing will fundamentally change, but even I still had some hope that he didn't really mean that. I was wrong. Shane says, this may sound awful, but I hope the Democrats lose something. It'll teach them to keep doing nothing while they are in power. But you know what? It won't reach them because they don't care.
They're
They will
insulated.
use it.
It's
They will
us that
use
get
it to
hurt.
fundraise. I don't know if they're going to be able to do much fundraising this time because they have really screwed up. I don't know how long people are going to give money to screw ups. Shane says they really don't care about passing any meaningful legislation. Joe Biden isn't going to do anything for the next 3 years. The only good thing he did was leaving Afghanistan.
He's going to have to do something
He's
because
going to
these
have to do
people like their
something if
jobs,
he
is really what
wants
this comes down
anybody
to.
to win. He's going to have to do something.
These people like their jobs. So believe me, they're just sheltered.
And Shane says Nancy Pelosi was talking about actually negotiating drug prices on 50 to 60 drugs. But that was in 2018. She never brought the bill to the floor when she became Speaker. She never wrote the bill, to my knowledge. That is true.
Didn't she promise that if we won the House and the Senate in 2015, or if we won the House in 2016, or whatever it was like, I will pass the $15 minimum wage, or yeah.
She's been promising that for a long time. The whole party's been promising that for a long time.
Gee, I wonder why we lost.
Okay. So Lana Del Hates the Clock says, hey, Joe, if I came down to Washington, can I stay with you? I don't think that, okay, is Lana Del asking me that for a number of reasons. But most important reason is you don't have Lana Del's color. You are.
Hey, Lana, if you want to go see Joe and Bonnie, though, I'll go with you. We'll stay at my sister's. So come on, girl, we'll go.
Okay, so Madeline Hoffman, Carmen says, thanks. Shan Carradine said, nearly tying, but still being libertarian. I scrolled up too fast. And where are they? Where am I? Here I am. And Shane said, and she never said which drugs. It was probably the drugs she hadn't actually invested in. And Carmen says, never mind. Grayson would be a super dud then. Laugh out loud. Now, Grayson would be fun. And Lana
Why
says,
can't I picture him? Is he in the House or Senate?
He's running for the Senate in Florida. He's running for Marco Rubio's seat. So is Val Demings.
What was he doing before this run?
Well, he was a congressman for 2 terms.
Congress. Okay.
He was a congressman for 2 terms. Then he got married to a doctor. She ran for his congressional seat when he vacated it to run for the Senate. When he ran for the Senate, he lost in the primary to a conventional Democratic candidate, and Marco Rubio won that Senate seat.
Okay.
So the troll, Lana Del Troll said, I'd like to look for a house in Washington, D.C., and the troll said they'd been thinking about coming to Washington, D.C., moving to Washington, D.C., and then the real Lana Del says, the purple is not me, and then the troll said, the orange one isn't me, and then she said, I recently changed the color of my profile. Dr. Joe, do you know I'm Lana? I know you're not Lana. I instantly knew you were not Lana in the first place. And so Lana Del Hates the Clock says, blocking Purple L.
There you go.
Sorry, Purple. No one will believe I want to move.
Nobody likes you.
blocking Purple L. And Chelsea, I've been looking to get out of Minnesota for a long time. And she says, blocking Orange L. And Steve Gonzo says, Lana, 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 the whole gang's here. And the false Lana says, hey, go start. And the real Lana says, I have clones, apparently.
Everybody wants to be Lana.
Everybody wants to be Lana. Lana is very, very popular. And Sandy Degg posts a number of images of the race for the governorship in New Jersey. And Steve Gonzo says, Landell hates the clock. I watched by Replica with Keanu Reeves last night. He cloned his family. And the real Lana says, Replica, got it. And TD Media says, Knit the Revolution is currently the most viewed show on KRTD Media.
Yay!
Hit, Lisa. You got a hit.
That's Laura, man. I just ride her coattails.
Between YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, it has over 1,600 views already. Most views coming from Twitter. Yes.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
And Shane says that's over the last 3 days. It had 700 views by Monday night. And Ghost Start says hashtag KIR. I don't know what that is. Gotta love it.
KRT, KIR.
And Ghost Start says correction hashtag KTR. I think it's
KRTD. Is that what he's saying?
KRTD. Yes. Yeah. It stands for Kerberos Roundtable Discussions. And Shane says, I was expecting it to be successful, but I'm pleasantly surprised with how successful it has been.
Well, get ready, Shane. We just got started.
And Lana says, I have to see Night the Revolution. It's Knit the Revolution, not really Night. And she says, I hope Laura will keep reading Joe's book chapters.
You know what, Lana? We should just get somebody else to read them. Because I can tell you this right now. Laura's like scheduling out the whole damn quarter. And she's on it. But I loved the way that she read your book, Joe. I just think that we should start reading. Like, really. Because I don't have time to sit down and read. I'm doing this kind of stuff all day. But it sure is nice to sit down and listen to it while I'm going to sleep or, whatever. So if it's read...
You listen to it while you're going to sleep. Thank you, Lisa.
It takes me, Joe, it can take me an hour and a half to 2 hours to unwind to fall asleep. I kid you not.
Back of you.
Sure.
I kid you not. It takes me that long. I've got to like, that's why I have to get off with you sometimes when I say I've got to go. Because it'll be another hour and a half before I'm asleep.
Oh, wow.
I can't just lay down and go to sleep after going. So anyhow, so don't take that as an insult. Laura was very, very good at reading that.
She was.
Very good.
She is.
But it doesn't mean that we can't do that.
Okay. It's in present tense. So Shane says, I don't think we can get Biden to do anything, not even sure he's running the presidency based on his mental state. Sandy Deck says, Bernie. And Carm says, oops, no, I meant Ilhan isn't a caver. I don't think she's a caver either. Shane says, we do need to raise taxes on the rich, not because we need it to fund things, though. That's true, Shane. But first, what we need to do is do things for the poor, get things to the poor, and get things to the middle class, and build up social capital, okay, in that way. When that business is done, then we take care of justice in taxation. But that can't be first priority, because the taxes aren't needed to pay for anything.
Yeah, but Joe, let me ask a question, because this always bugs me. They have to tax. We all know
they have to tax to drive the currency. Right.
Exactly. Right?
Right.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of nice that they didn't tax the poor people so much and they went after them?
It would be nice if we lifted taxes on the poor people, and we should surely do that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't,
I
have
mean,
any problem at all, okay, in doing that. But the point is, in the current political situation, the most important thing we can do be that would not get the issues so mixed up is to provide relief for poor people, okay, and for middle class families with direct support, with checks. The whole pandemic experience showed that was the most effective thing to do in terms of easing the plight of poor people. And then we would not get into the taxation issues if we decoupled spending bills from taxation bills.
oh
All,
yeah.
all we'd be
Yeah.
talking about at one time is what are the benefits we should be giving to various parts of the population? Discuss that in isolation from the pay fors, because the pay fors are not needed, okay,
Yeah,
to
they're
give the
bullshit.
benefits.
Yeah.
Then we can take up the taxes
Separate.
separately and
Separately.
talk about the injustices of the tax system, and then talk about lowering taxes on the poor and raising taxes on the rich. And if we did things in that way, we would get overwhelming support for the benefit bills, and we'd also get overwhelming support later
For
for the
the tax
taxation bill.
bills.
But it
Yeah.
depends on the sequence. Depends on the sequence. And by the way, to get anything done in both cases, you're going to have to get rid of the filibuster, because if not, the donor people are just going to tie it up completely. Shane says, I think Carmen, it depends on the bill. She has sometimes. And Shane says, I will be speaking at Occupy Pfizer. Cool. And Shane says, Joe, it was New Jersey, not but Virginia. It was New Jersey what? I know that Murphy won, New Jersey, and McAuliffe lost in Virginia. Were you talking about something else, Shane? Elvira Mihalko says, he bombed Somalia and Syria. And the media was so silent. Yes, I know that. They're, they're incredible, just incredible. They're so silent about everything.
That's what we were going to talk about. Reversing the FCC.
The FTC, I'm
The
sorry?
FCC, the Federal Communications Commission.
Yes, fixing the Federal Communications Commission. Yes, we were going
Whether,
to talk about that.
yeah, we were just going to talk about the things that we could demand that could change things.
Yes, and that was a very important thing that could change things, because what we're trying to do is think of a list of demands for the general strike. But one thing we seem to have come to here, okay, in this particular discussion, is the thing we could do most quickly and most importantly is to have an action just for the purpose of getting people into the streets
To kill the bill.
to kill the bills. At this point, that is very important. We've got to reset things back to zero.
Yeah, make them start over. Reboot, you get a second chance.
Reboot, okay, to get a second chance. And while they're at it, make them go first with the voting rights bill. Get that voting rights bill done first.
We got to amend it. I've said that before.
Yep.
It's dirty.
Yep. It's dirty. If we could get that into demands too, that would be great. Carmina says insulin should be free because the FDA allowed that goddamn high corn fructose and other killers in our food. It should also be free or nearly free because the inventor of insulin gave it to the world for $1. Carmen Muniz says, Troll is trying to fish for your location, Joe. Be vigilant. I will, Carmen. Sandy says, I want to be Lana. And Lana says, I would like to escape being Lana right now, as some of you know. And Ghostot says, hashtag KTR knit of the revolution. Ah, yes, knit of the revolution. Carmen says, Joe is a night owl. He's just getting started, right, Bonnie? I'm not such a night owl as I used to be. We're trying to pare back a little, but yeah, we still are night owls primarily. But I did make it up at 8:30 today, and I made it up at 8 o'clock the day before. So those were relatively unprecedented happenings in this household. Shane says, you said we have to fix the poor situation before we fix the tax situation, but can't we walk and chew gum at the same time? No, because the issues get too complex and the media keeps inputting different memes. We need a clean situation. It's more politically practical. Have the benefits first, fight that out first, then go get them on taxes.
Then you say, will you meet me in the streets?
Will you meet me in the streets?
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
mean, that's it. We've got to get in the streets.
it's like when the Dems were focused on impeachment and they wouldn't pass or bring up any bills in the House. The answer is, Shane, in this case, with this situation, we cannot walk and chew gum at the same time, because there are some people who would go for a benefits bill because they can't stand being called out, having voted against just the benefits bill, a clean benefits bill. But if you combined it with taxes, with cutting taxes for certain people and raising taxes, okay, for other people, then you get all kinds of other issues involved. And they can say, I'm voting against this bill because the
Because
tax
of this.
changes it's making is unjust. I'm all for the benefits, but what I'm really against is what they're doing with the taxes. And that's the way they play it. And they get some purchase from that. It's just not a clean situation, Shane says. Or bring up any bills in the House during the entire impeachment thing. I know. That's any excuse for Nancy Pelosi. That goes back to Nancy Pelosi. Lana says, speaking of taxes, Joe Manchin wants to increase taxes on the serfs in exchange for adding 4 weeks of paid family leave back in the bill. See, that's Manchin. Every time he wants to give something, he's got to get something in return for that. I think the progressives have to negotiate in the same way, and they never did that. When they cut from 6 trillion to 3.5 trillion, they never got anything for that. They just gave up the 6 trillion and they cut to 3.5 trillion. Very often that is Bernie's way. He does not actually negotiate for things the way a union leader would actually negotiate for things. If you want me to give you this,
But Bernie
then
wasn't involved in all of those negotiations either.
I'm sorry?
Bernie wasn't sitting down in those negotiations, all of them either.
Oh, no, he wasn't sitting down, okay, in all those negotiations. But he could have gotten himself sitting down, okay, in those negotiations if he had said, look, if I'm not part of these negotiations, I'm voting against this bill. Guess what? Sometimes you have to horn in. You have to say, you want my support on this bill? I get a seat at the table, or you don't get either of these bills. You have to have the strength to say that if you want to be able to do things well. And I'm afraid Bernie hasn't had the strength to do that kind of thing.
I don't know. I think that.
Well, I've never seen him do it.
We don't see them do any of this. We watch a damn circus on the damn TV box. Like I said, I couldn't even find the live Senate feed yesterday. I can't believe how long I looked for it.
Okay, all that I'm saying is, if Bernie put out a call at the start of all this thing to say basically, if you want my support for any bill, I have to be part of the negotiations for that bill. He could have publicly put that out. He could have said, if you want my vote, that's what you have to do. And then he would have been a part of those negotiations. He's the independent senator from Vermont. He has a perfect platform for saying something like that. So Lana says, speaking of taxes, Joe Manchin wants to increase taxes on the surf in exchange for adding 4 weeks of paid family leave. Shane says, I think we need to have another general strike idea session soon. Yeah, maybe, but we need to have a general strike soon. Shane says, we did 2 meetings and then we never did a third. Well,
There's the 12th and the 13th. Fred Hampton Left is doing the General Strike Summit.
right. Okay, so Shane, are you going to speak at that summit? They're going to give you a chance to speak? Carmen says, right, Joe, don't convolute the issues. And Lana Dell says, I see Bonnie. Yes, you did see her, but that wasn't, again, the color of Lana Dell. So that is not a Lana Dell. That's another troll. So, moving down, Shane says, hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
And Lana Dell, I think this is the false Lana Dell now. One of the false Lana Dells say, I see Bonnie. Carmen says, right, Joe, don't convolute the issues. Then another false Lana Dell comes in and says, hey, Joe. And Ghostart says, how much does Uma Thurman charge to kill Bills?
That's good.
And
That
the
was
other
good.
Lana Dell says, ha ha, I was thinking of the movie too. And then one of the other Lana Del Charles says, Dr. Joe, you think Bernie should block legislation, keep on blocking it until he gets a tax passed on rakes?
What?
It's one of the most important issues in the country. That's a troll there. So the troll just spouted some nonsense.
Don't read the trolls, Joe.
And Ghostart says, where's John Yarmouth? He's in the house. And Shane says, no, not speaking at the summit. Okay. We've gone through all the comments now. Lisa, do we have any final words before we wrap up for the evening? I have a few final words, but not about the issues.
I just think that there's hope here. There is a crack in the door's open. The door is open. It's not slammed shut. It's no longer locked. There's a crack. They're going to shut it again. We need to get our foot in there now. We need to make them uncomfortable. So,
okay. I don't know whether there's hope at this point. Okay, I just don't know. It depends on how Jayapal reacts to the elections and to the defeat that we just saw. Before then, she was treading a very, very bad path. So unless this has had some impact on her to change the path that either she was treading or that some of the other progressives who were backing her, were treading, we're not going to see much hope. But I don't think. So one of the things that I had to say was that Comrade Misty, Putin's buddy, is coming to the show tomorrow night, and we'll be talking Julian Assange.
yes.
Okay. So that should be a very interesting discussion. And then for next week, Do I know whether this is happening on? Okay. For next Tuesday, Ramona Masachi, okay, is coming on,
Ramona, yes, yes, yes.
and we may be getting Stephanie Gallardo to come back and
Yeah.
finish her presentation on Thursday of next week, but that's not settled quite yet. Uh, okay, so that's where we stand with some of the future programs. We'll also be on Saturday, okay, as well, but I'm not sure what the show will be at this point for Saturday night. And Lauderdale says, good do, and then she says, sorry, good discussion and good night. Thank you, Lana. That is the real Lana there. Sandy Degg says, looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you, Joe, Bonnie, Lisa, and everyone. Have a good night, says Sandy Degg.
Good night, Sandy.
And good
And
night,
Lana.
everybody. And
Oh,
good
hey,
night, Lana.
I just wanted to say one thing real quick. Shane,
Sure.
reach out to Laura and just tell her you'd really like to speak because maybe there's a way. Just talk to her. Just I'm tired and I'm thinking out loud, but yeah.
Okay.
And Joe, I think this was a good discussion. I think it's I think that there is the possibility for us to actually make some progress. Us meaning all of us, right?
Well, I hope, but as I say, right now it looks like that quite a lot is going to depend on how Jayapal and some of the other progressives in the CPC react to the loss. That's going to be very important. And the other question is how Biden and his staff, okay, is going to react to the loss. The idea that he tried to govern through issuing, okay, a bunch of executive orders was advanced at the beginning of the administration in detail by the American Prospect and writers over there. And they outlined various things he could do by general, actually through executive orders. They outlined that actually before the election was even decided. What he could do in case he won, but he was shackled by the Congress. There are an awful lot of things he could do to make himself and the Democrats look extremely good, but he has not wanted to do any of it. We've gone over some of the things he could do here that would make him very, very popular within a month or two, and yet he hasn't moved, okay, to do anything like that. So maybe a defeat will motivate he and his staff to do some of those things, because right about now they got to be getting very desperate.
Well, if they're not desperate yet, they will be.
Yes.
Because they know now. They know now. I think that they were just like, no, 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 no. And then boom. I think now they realize, uh-oh. Right? Because they dismiss a lot. Oh, it's just them. It's just them. It's just them. Well, Barack Obama was down there tooting his horn about McCullough.
They threw a whole bunch of supposedly high-powered Dems in there to help him.
Yep.
And he had a huge war chest too.
Yeah.
As much money as anybody could want to run this campaign, because he's a phenomenal fundraiser for others, but for himself too. And he did the fundraising here. They poured in money into that campaign.
Yep.
Now, there was a huge amount of money that went to Youngkin too. So there was a lot of money on both sides because people wanted this. But the fact is, the Democrats failed to get it. And the reason why they failed to get it was because they failed to do anything for the people of Virginia.
Yeah. Like they failed to do anything for anybody, right?
Like they failed to do anything for the people of the country. So people were angry at them. And that is why Terry McAuliffe lost. When he was the governor of this state, he wasn't a notably bad governor. He wasn't really notably worse than Mark Warner or Tim Kaine or some of the other bozos they've had in here. Okay. The reason why he lost is because people weren't any longer happy with governors who do nothing and with parties who do nothing for them. The country wants the parties to deliver at long last. And they're turning to one party, wanting them to deliver. They're turning to another party to deliver. They've been going back and forth now for almost a whole generation.
I think what's going on now is you've left the people no choice. Okay? The lesser of two evils is still evil, folks. What choice do they got? Truthfully, what choice do they have?
They have two bad choices.
Well, we have all bad choices.
Bad choices,
right?
so
But
they're
we can
going to
vote
make,
you out.
from their point of view, they're going to make one of the bad choices.
Which is either I'm not
From
voting
my
for
point
now,
of view, what they
vote
should
me out.
do is they should go for a third choice
if there is one.
and have a determined campaign, a determined collective campaign to throw as many of the incumbents out of office of both parties that they could possibly do. They should embark on a congressional slaughterhouse at the polls. That is what they should do. We could call that congressional slaughterhouse. Have a big event about the congressional slaughterhouse, trying to motivate people to kick out everybody, no exceptions. They have all performed really terribly. So, folks, on that note, I'm going to say goodnight, and we'll see you tomorrow for Comrade Misty, Putin's buddy.
Can I show up for that? I get to come for that, right?
You get to come for that.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Cool.
You certainly get to come for that. You certainly get to anyone that you want to come for. Going
Good.
forward.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I got a lot going on, Joe, and I'm running out of RAM.
I know. You're running out of RAM and you're running out of room.
Running out of steam. Hey guys, thank you ever so much. Talk to you all soon. Bonnie, thank you for putting up with us again.
I love you.
She's so sweet.
You can talk to Joe anytime you want.
You're so sweet. Okay.
And so GhostArt says FHL proudly announces Frank Analysis at B43 Franco as a contributing speaker for the General Strike Summit, Sunday, November 14th.
Yep.
The time is 11 a.m. EST.
I think I read that before we started. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the end, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Night, guys.